Check, check. All right. All right, if I can have your attention, please, if we can start making our way back to our seats. If you're out in the lobby and you can hear me, doors are about to close and you're going to catch your fingers in it. Skeever. All right. Real quick, before we bring these guys up, I just want to say thanks again for being here. What a great event this has turned out to be, and I just want to say thanks to the facilities here. I think it's great that we're bringing people out of this matrix, and I said this earlier, but I got to say it again. I can't even believe that I'm at Fantasyland. So, and I've been living in it the whole time. All right. This portion of this wonderful event is, I'll let you guys all get settled in here. It's called Flat Earth and the Bible. And that seems to be a hot topic that a lot of people are jumping on in the media right now is, oh, golly, these crazy religious folks. Yet it takes 5 minutes to school somebody from the media with just a little bit of patience and an open mind and a humble heart. So don't treat anybody from the media bad. Please don't. As much as you might want to, don't. Because we're all there. We're all there, and that's the whole thing. And we can have fun with Flat Earth. Ask the guys from the radio station. Did you guys have fun a little bit ago? There you go. They got to meet Roland Reddy. So, all right. So without further ado, let's bring these guys out. Is everybody settled in? Well, there's one more guy. You're holding us up, pal. You and your hot coffee. Be careful. It's dark over there. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Robbie Davidson out, Emmanuel Lakanga, Rob Skiba, and, of course, Matt Long.
All right, this is Flat Earth and the Bible panel. And this, obviously, when it comes down to this Q&A, we're going to have some discussions, and later on we're going to open it up to you to kind of go further in. But I thought it was interesting and amazing that we've got complete different stories here. And I thought I would start by going into, with Rob Skiba. He shared much of his journey and, how he came to Flat Earth. But what I would say, Rob, is what's intriguing about all three of you, myself included, is we were Christians before we came to Flat Earth. Now, there's a lot of people now that are becoming Christian after they came to Flat Earth, and that's a whole other matter. But what is interesting is we are all in the same page when it comes to already doing ministry and doing things when it came to, our Christian walks. But how would you say things changed? And I'm not talking about how it was more about with your relationship when it came to the Creator. Can maybe go into detail on what that pivotal, not the change about what happened on the outside, the attacks. So we've gone through that. I think people will recognize that. But what really changed in your relationship with God?
Wow, there's so much I could say on that regard, but I would say probably the biggest thing is looking at the scriptures, and like I said in my last presentation, dealing with the firmament. I couldn't get around that. I mean, that was a pretty big issue, but realizing that if that cosmology is true, then he is way closer and way more tangible. He's a tangible entity, very close. When I believed in the spinning heliocentric globular Earth hurling through space, where's God? Scripture's telling me over and over and over again, he's right above the firmament. How tall is the firmament? How high? I don't know. But it's a lot closer. So he became, I guess the best way to say it is much more tangibly real and closer.
And I felt the same way. To me, it was almost like, even though, we knew that God was omnipresent and omniscient, we understood this, it just seemed like, but where are you? How far? We're talking endless galaxies. And to me, it just brought everything so much closer. Because I think that even, for a lot of Christians, I still think there's kind of, God's really far away. Even though, we understand that, there's just this push as we get all of this, nonstop, multi-galaxies and the stuff that, you covered. So I would say that I, feel the same way on that. So we're going to go next to Emmanuel Lakanga, and a little bit about Emmanuel. It was an interesting story, but it was Patricia was sharing a video, I think it was in 2015, and said, hey, new flat earther, because he had done some flat earth video, and, go support him, because Patricia Steer, Mark Sargent, many people in this community, they're very supportive, and they do a lot of things behind the scenes as well in just encouraging others. And she said, check out this Controversy 7 guy. So I went to the video, and I'm watching. And what was unique, kind of maybe like Mark Sargent, this guy, puts his phone number on his videos. And I looked at the number, and I said, whoa, wait a minute, that's my number. No, it's 2 numbers off. Wait a minute. He lives in my city, or he's really close. So I call him up. He answers the phone. And I said, hey, man. He said, hey, where do you live? He goes, Canada. I'm like, I know Canada. Where do you live, right? So he went on to say, and we kind of had a good laugh on it. But, when I looked at him, he was on YouTube for 6, 7 years. He was, a very big channel at the time. And all of a sudden he's coming out with it, and he's like in my city. So for me, really, when it came to who was my first real flat earther that I got to meet, it was Emmanuel Lukonga. And we, really hit it off. I remember when we went to Boston Pizza, and we sat there and we talked, and I'm just this little guy, and I'm like, whoa, like you're like, I forget, 60,000 subs. And I'm looking at his videos, and he's got videos in the 2, 3, 4 billion. He can tell the stories on that. But to me, it was absolutely incredible that here you are, and all of a sudden there was this just completely relationship that formed, and all of a sudden now we're doing a show together, Controversial Truth, and we put out a couple episodes on that. I was able to be at your wedding. You just recently got married, which was really exciting. So I just wanted to explain that, because I think a lot of people really don't know the connection, with Emmanuel and myself, and I'm going to let him share a little bit more about kind of his journey, basically on YouTube, but also into the topic that basically shocked a lot of people when he came out with it.
Yeah. Is the microphone on? Oops, I guess technical difficulties. But my story was actually a very interesting one, because I was on YouTube doing things more. I was doing more exposés and talking about things on YouTube that basically exposes the industry, and also, focusing on biblical prophecies and prophetic events. And on my news feed, I began to see suggestions that were popping up, and I saw the headlines of Flat Earth and all this, and it was back in 2015. So when I first heard of these things, it became almost like a nuisance for me, because I just kind of brushed it. And the more I brushed it, the more I kept seeing more suggestions were still popping up. And I tried to fight it. I was like, what's going on with these people? I'm like, and then there's, first I knew there was a talk of like, there's people who believed in hollow earth, in the whole hollow earth theory, all of that. So I basically kind of brushed that up. I'm like, this is just nonsense. Now it says flat. They're saying the earth is flat. And the first thing I said was probably the same thing that most people maybe have said was, we got pictures. Right? We got pictures. That's the first thing that I said. Mm-hmm. But then when I basically kept seeing these suggestions popping up, I even saw a Facebook feed that even was talking about best evidence that Earth is flat and all this stuff. And then I was like, basically, I got really frustrated looking at this. I'm like, who in their right minds believe that, the Earth is flat in 2015? So then I basically then began to say, okay, you know what? I think this will be a good topic for me to expose and publish on my channel, Debunking Flat Earth. And that's it. And I basically said to myself, I'm like, I got the globe. Like we know we got pictures, we got the best evidence, we got the international the ISS, which now I call the International Swimming Station. But some of you do your researches, you'll be able to understand what this means. But basically, then when I went to try and debunk flat Earth, the more I didn't go with it with the mindset of I hate that group, but I went with their perspective of let me give them a fair chance, because the evidence is overwhelming for the globe. So then when I went to go and debunk it, that's when I realized that rabbit hole is actually much deeper than it looks. And from there on, it basically was one thing led to another, and I began to have sleepless nights, and I mentioned that to you. I couldn't sleep. I wrestled with it. No curvature, you couldn't find it. People sending high altitude balloons, they're pointing from one skyline to another, doing mathematics. And I couldn't wrap my mind around that. And then it got to the point where I began to then ask myself the question, well, what does the Bible say about it? You know? And then when I began to then look at the perspective of all these scriptural verses, then I began to realize, wow, the Bible is actually a flat earth book. It doesn't say anything about a heliocentric globe. Because when you look at this, at Genesis, the sun was created on the fourth day. And if it was created on the fourth day, what was the earth revolving around before the sun was made? I began to ask those kinds of questions. And then I began to then bring this to my sister. I'm like, hey, did you know that the Bible actually says the earth is flat? And my sister said, well, if the Bible says it, I believe it. I'm like, no, you're not listening.
That was my wife.
My wife did the same thing.
My wife did too. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I just said flat earth. And she's like, yeah, the Bible says it.
Yeah.
What kind of faith is that? I mean, I wish I had that type of faith.
That's exactly it. She said, well, if the Bible says it, I believe it. I'm like, no, you're not listening. The Bible actually says the earth is flat. And she said, no, well, I believe it if the Bible says. I'm like, you're not getting it. I'm telling you.
Did you explain to her we're on a ball?
I explained.
Maybe she didn't know that.
She knew about that we lived in a ball and everything. But then when I mentioned to her that the Bible said it, it's like instantly she just said, well, if the Bible says it, I believe it. I'm like, I couldn't understand why she believed it. And she didn't even see an evidence, you know. But then when I began to show her the evidence and I basically began to show her what I was uncovering, then she said it makes sense. And she believed it without like much hesitation. And then that's when I had to make the decision. Well, at this point, now I know that if we never made it to the moon, we never went high enough to take pictures of the earth itself. We have no pictures, and all the pictures I went and actually Googled pictures of Earth from space. None soever that were consistent. They were all different, you know. So, and that's where you have to make the decision ultimately. Well, if I cross this boundary of going to talk about the earth being flat, number one rule, you're not doing this to get fame. You're not doing this to gain any friends. Once you go and you say the earth is flat or you believe that the earth is stationary, you're losing friends. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared to also be persecuted even by people in your own church. And that's what I had to make the decision. As soon as I did that, I lost people. You know? Mm-hmm. It's a sacrifice, but hopefully it will pay off that, this truth will go out into the four corners of the earth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we've got Matt Long, and I was able to meet Matt Long in Texas for the first time. And I'll tell you, it's one thing that I keep on saying. I mean, in a very, very short time, he's been able to do remarkable things, and it's a real honor to know you and just to be part of your journey. But getting into that, when I'd asked Rob the connection and what it kind of did, what was it like for you as far as your relationship with God?
Well, I do a lot more YouTube videos now than I did before, but I just want to say, I think it's incredible that you failed your way to 150,000 subs because you were trying to debunk it, right? Yeah. That's pretty good. The difference for me has been being in the Word more. And if I can take that portion of Genesis literally, man, what else in there can I take literally? And I've spoken to some people about this, but I had an experience when I was in 7th grade where I know I was physically touched by Christ, like touched me on the back. And yet, in my 20s, I had a period of time where I claimed to be an atheist. Like I denied God. And the only difference between then and now is I'm in the Word a lot more now. And so it's amazing that someone who thinks he was literally physically touched by God while not being in the Word, being in science books and things like that, can be totally different. Sure. So it's, I would just say the amount of time spent in the Word and the awesome. Value that it brings.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to Emmanuel because he didn't have an opportunity to really maybe share your journey, getting to the point of being Christian. What were you like before? And I don't think anyone's really, heard your journey when it comes to just your testimony, kind of summing it up.
Yeah. On a spiritual scale, I had to ask myself the question because remember, it ties in with before going in and actually going to speak about this and actually claiming, that our existence actually fits that of the scriptures, what it did for me was I asked the question, well, if this is true, that the earth is a stationary, motionless, flat plane, then what it ultimately means is that we have a God who has not abandoned us. That's ultimately what it means. And at the same time, it also means that the Bible, and I mentioned this on the very first video that I published about flat earth, I said that the Bible has basically been proven to stand the test of time, and it passes the test. That is a strong testimony. And ultimately, this actually ended up making me see God now in a whole different perspective, because now I know that our Creator, He is actually close to us. And when there's a passage, I don't remember where the passage is, but it says that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. He knows even how much hair we have. He knows everything. He knows us when we're in the womb, before we were even born. He knew he knew who we would be. He knows our future. All of these things, when I began to look at them, it began to actually help me in such a way that my relationship with God became even more stronger, because now I knew for a fact that God, He really made us special in such a way that we not only are made in His own image, but if you look at things from the biblical perspective, really, His throne is above us.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
How far, we don't know. But He has not forsaken us. We are not a speck of dust, that basically is hurtling in infinite space and, spinning in every direction, falling in every direction. Mm-hmm. He is a God that actually makes sense.
And it's a great point. When you talk about, He's right up. If you actually think about it, no matter how technologically advanced we get, up is still up.
Exactly.
It wouldn't fool anyone. Everyone would understand that from the beginning of creation to wherever it goes. Up is up. Down is down. It never changes. It doesn't evolve. So to me, I think it's a very strong point when it comes to directional studies, when it comes to the Bible, because there is so much to do with up and down and directions. And again, getting to the point of distorting the true creator of creation is even warping the idea of even understanding, well, where's up anymore? It's unbelievable, Matt.
Yeah, and I just say it's a lot easier to go down than it is to go up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, in that regard, you talk to most Christians, and a lot of them would say hell is beneath our feet, somewhere below us, but yet deny that heaven is just as local above us. Mm-hmm. That was a big thing for me. I was like, you will agree that locality of hell is right below us, literally, mm-hmm. and deny that heaven is equally right above us.
Kind of like 6 literal days, but no, the sun, moon, and stars, that couldn't be literal.
Or inside the firmament.
There you go.
Or that all the stars are going to fall to earth.
And we're going to talk more about that. We're going to definitely get into that. And we're going to talk a lot more about why they're picking and choosing what's literal and now what's allegory, because there's some interesting things. I think what's really incredible when it comes to biblical cosmology, there's always that one verse that was just absolutely profound. God just spoke to you through that verse. And for me, it was Amos 9:6. And again, when it came down to my story that I told at the beginning of the conference, that was really interesting, because at Grace Life Church, they use, I believe, the NSAB, and it's the one that says vaulted dome. It doesn't just say dome. It is the translation that, punches it twice. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm still waiting, Pastor James, for you to finally interpret that for me, because I asked you 5 or 6 times, and you said you were busy, and I'm like, this is one verse. We're hanging out. You've got a lot of time for a lot of things, but I think it's a real problematic thing, because they have to either say, well, wait a minute, well, maybe that was an error where maybe we kind of went off on it. But then all of a sudden, what's really interesting is you take the Grace Life app on the Apple Store and change it to KJV. Go down to the verse where it says troop. You tap it, you get 4 definitions. You get one that's ridiculous, has no bearing whatsoever. You're talking about heaven, men surrounding things, and then, again, he's talking about creation, and we can get into that. But I just laughed because it's just ridiculous, 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 firmament. the dome to the earth. Was it a bunch of men that he's talking about surrounding a thing? Is it a hyssop of it's so ridiculous because it's a creation verse talking about up, earth, and the water. Give me a break. But they would rather choose anything rather than that last one. It's so horrifying, that dome, vault, firmament. And again, we were all suckered in. And it's a very interesting study how many times did we look at Genesis and we went right by that firmament, canopies, whatever, but we just, oh yeah, must be that. We just wouldn't stop. We had to say it had to be that. That's the most logical reason. But what I found interesting is you talk about, Hovind getting into the canopy theory. But here's an interesting, when it gets into, Christian or even doctrine or theology for that matter, lots of different interpretations. How many were there for the firmament? Isn't it interesting? We stopped at one. I mean, heck, we come up with a million different interpretations all over the place, but they only really have one. I don't know of many that they really structurally had a model when it came to the firmament. I'm not talking about the truth of what it is, but I'm saying, it's an ice canopy or whatever. There wasn't really a lot. But yeah, for me it was Amos 9:6, and it was particularly interesting because I was at the church with the translation at the time, and I'm not an ultimate, King James version only. I believe it's the best, but I do believe there's other versions out there. But for me, I was like, wow. I mean, I would love to hear how this, the interpretation of this. So, Rob, maybe you can explain kind of what that verse was for you, and why, and maybe go a little deeper on that.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Amos 9:6 because that ties into mine. Mine, as I mentioned in my presentation, was the firmament. I mean, you're not very far in Genesis 1, and you're confronted with this thing, the firmament. And I grew up in a King James only environment. I am not King James only. I study King James, but I'm a big advocate for parallel study Bibles where you have multiple versions you can compare and have a concordance where you can look at the Hebrew and Greek. And so I would see lots of other translations. Many of them would say firmament. Some are now saying expanse. And so I start looking into that. And, of course, you got the Danny Faulkners and the others that wanted to say that the expanse is just air and gas and blah, blah, blah. But like I said in my presentation, the word doesn't support that. It's a hard, firm structure backed up by internal witnesses telling you the sky is firm. So that was a huge one for me. And like I said in my presentation, Kent Hovind, Karl Baugh, I subscribed to the canopy theory until you look down where it says he put the sun, moon, and stars in the firmament, not outside and around it. And I was like, wow, that's a game changer right there. And then when I got to Amos 9:6, and King James says troop. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason it does, and if you do look up those definitions, the word's used like 3 or 4 times, something like that, in the Bible. And it basically, the word means like knit together, tightly bundled together. That's why like a bunch of hyssop or something, or a troop. I was in C Troop versus the 110th Air Cav when I was in the Army. So that's a tight-knit group of people. So yes, you could use that word, but the context, as you said, is all about heaven and the structure of heaven. And after having Zen Garcia on my show, because apparently that verse drew his attention, and he went into it and started showing me why the NASB and some others talk about dome or vault or vaulted dome, like the double whammy. Yeah. And you're like, wow, I mean, that's the slam dunk verse right there saying that this thing is actually attached to the earth. That's why the word is used. And so if there's a dome and it's hard and it's attached to the earth, then everything is way smaller. And then when I look at verses like all the stars are going to fall from heaven, well, at that point I have to look. Isaiah, Yeshua, Peter, and John all said all the stars are going to fall. Somebody's lying. And I'm not prepared to say that it's Isaiah, Yeshua, Peter, or John. So Carl Sagan's out, Neil deGrasse is out. Those guys are out. Sorry, Star Trek, George Lucas, and Gene Roddenberry, I can't go there.
No, for sure.
So it would be the firmament verses.
Awesome. What about you, Manuel? What would be that one verse and why?
For me, the one verse, if I could just show this for everybody, it's that one verse that actually drove many people away from the church to be. It's because I've been confronted by people who actually told me, because the Bible says this, I don't buy it, I don't believe in the Bible, I'm out from the church. And it's Joshua chapter 10, verse 13, where it says, and the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. Right? This is clearly telling us that the sun and the moon and the stars are the ones that basically revolve around the earth. And also it ties in with also the book in Psalms 19, where it talks about the circuit of the sun. Like the path of the sun is a circuit. And then in another passage as well, it talks about the circuit of the stars, the heavens. It's all describing the one common denominator is the earth is not the one that's moving. In fact, the Bible does actually touch into that in other Bible verses, that it says the earth has been established that it shall not move. So when I looked into these passages, that's when I realized, like Rob Skiba just said, somebody's lying. So then that's where you have to make the decision. Well, okay, if you believe that the Word of God is divine inspired, that means that it's perfect in its entirety. Yet, if you look at the cosmology of what we've been given, compare that with the Bible, they do not match up. Nothing adds up. Somebody is lying. So, is it the Lord our God? Because it is the Holy Spirit of God inspired holy men so that they can write these words. So if you believe that these words are written by God, then you have to decide whether He is lying or whether it's these are modern day scientists who are lying to you. Who?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting how, I've heard interpretations where they say, well, listen, and we get into the doctrine of accommodation, but they'll say, based on their perspective, it's the way it appeared. What was really happening was that the earth, slowed down and came to a standstill, right? They'll go that direction. But to them, it seemed that this was taking place. Only problem was, if that happens, the moon's still going. We got major problems if the earth just stopped, period. But then you got problems when it's going in reverse. I mean, we got all sorts of problems every which way. But, I mean, it's a very strong illustration that even if that were the case, and you're going to take that position and come at us with that, what are you going to do with the moon? Because even if the earth stops, that moon's still moving, right? So, again, you have a problem, any which way. So, come to the text honest, because I'm seeing a lot of people, saying, oh, it must be this and that. It was their perspective. And it's like, you got problems either way, right? Take it literal for what happened. And not to mention, they stopped over distinct places. It's a double whammy. When I see double whammies in Scripture, I'm like, it's like, how many times does he have to just be like, okay, when are you going to get it? How many times do I have to say this? So I find it incredibly interesting. But what do we...
Yeah. It even gets worse with the Hezekiah situation, because the sun goes backwards 10 degrees.
Backwards.
So that would mean, in standard cosmology, that the Earth stopped rotating, rotated backwards 10 degrees, and then spun back up to 1,000 miles an hour again.
Yeah. But they would rather go almost that way than just be like, maybe the Earth doesn't move. Like, unbelievable the amount of indoctrination and just clinging to science. And we'll get into this more, but yet they'll fight science in so many areas. So people can say what they want about us, but at least we're trying to be consistent right across the board. How can you say you're a church that you're going against a lot of, indoctrination when it comes to science, but yet you love science all over here, Again, so, we're just looking at it saying, look, the deception is a lot greater than just the biological sciences. But, Matt, what was the verse that really did it for you, and why?
Well, like Rob said, in the firmament was a big one for me, but also Isaiah 40:22, where it talks about the circle of the earth, and how Isaiah just so happens in chapter 22, I think 22:18, uses the Hebrew word for ball when talking about being tossed like a ball. And he could have said tossed like a rock, tossed like a stone. He could have used any word, but he used the word ball almost as if to give us a clue that when he uses the word circle in 40:22, there's a difference. Like Rob Skiba said, Google helps, right?
And maybe there might be some people listening and in here, and they're kind of curious tonight, Rob. Maybe just give a condensed version of a presentation on the difference between a ball and a circle.
Google it.
You're going to be amazed at what you see.
You got a phone, right?
Yeah, Google it, and you will see the difference quickly.
And just to elaborate a little bit on the accommodation thing, where it's talking about these guys were writing during a time of what they understood. Well, what does it mean when they said, and then God said? That's a problem, right? When God said to Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?"
That's it.
I don't really have an explanation for that.
And remember, I don't remember that verse 100% how it went, but it was talking about how he encompassed he made a yes a compass.
Inscribed a circle.
Yes, he inscribed I'm speaking through the King James, from the King James version.
You inscribe the circle in the face of the deep. You're talking about that verse. Yeah, how do you do that with a ball?
So, and that's the thing, like, to encompass is to inscribe a circle. So that definitely, when you look at that there, the Bible writers of the time, if we were to just say, okay, if we were to say, no, they were writing, when they wrote to a circle, it means a ball. You should be able to see also a reflection of the ball cosmology throughout the other civilizations as well and other religions. But what you see is a common factor, and that is the earth is either circular, and there's some type of a boundary, some type of a shielding on top of it. And even when you go to look at the Egyptians, they even have those I don't remember which deities they are that basically kind of
sky god Nut.
That's it.
Was an Egyptian.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. And again, for me, I look at it like kind of the flood account, because you see a consistency. There's different various stories. I mean, there was a source, and then there's these discrepancies. But again, there's a consistent story. There was a worldwide flood. There was a family. Numbers vary. But again, there's a consistent story. So I mean, it's a really good point you brought up. And the fact, like, if you follow everyone else, you're right. There is no ball cosmologies.
Well, and the interesting thing about talking about inscribing a circle on the face of the deep, there's another area, I can't remember if it's Job or Isaiah, but it talks about the face of the deep being frozen. And you can absolutely inscribe a circle on something that's frozen. And, everyone talks about the puddle, right? And then kind of melted out with the sun. But that was one that bothered me for a little bit. But then when I went and saw it, I was like, man, that's crazy. And to think that the edges are potentially still frozen, and that's the face of the deep is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's just absolutely an incredible thing. I mean, but again, we've all been in this flat Earth for good 2 years. But again, when it comes to this last year, there's been an incredible surge, I would say, of theologians gone wild, as Rob Skiba likes to put it. And again, I think it's a great illustration, because what is going on? And I think this is a good time to talk about just what's going on in so many areas. I mean, we're seeing it. At first, when we got into this, we saw this, but it seems that there's a conceited effort of just going off the rails with this. And again, it was almost like the media attention coming in for 20 minutes, and they're like, "Go read our story. We got enough." It's like you didn't get anything, but it's like the same kind of reaction. It's like, the anger is building and stuff. It's like, what is it? I get it all the time. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And what is this going on? Don't at least admit this is a big deal. So, I mean, Rob coined the phrase when it came to theologians gone wild. I think you're on series 3. You got part 3. You're part 4. So watch the whole series, because it escalates. It gets crazier. So what do you honestly think's going on? Let's tie it all around, cosmology, flat Earth, literal, Mandela effect, if you want to go there.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I start talking about this stuff, and I'm just a dude reading books, right? I'm just out there making videos, and people start watching them. And what happened for me, like I mentioned earlier, I was already on the public scene, doing a lot of traveling the world, talking about other subjects. And so when I started talking about flat Earth, most of my audience, and I had a pretty good sized audience, were like, "Dude went crazy." He's like, "He's out. Something happened to him." And then they kind of kept an eye on me. They're like watching what's going on, and they're seeing that I'm getting the snot kicked out of me every day. Somebody's just going after me. And after a year, I wasn't backing down. In fact, I was continuing. So what happened with a lot of my audience is they saw the abuse that I was taking and that I wasn't backing down, and they said, well, maybe there's something to this. So then I started getting apology letters. people sending me, dude, I really said bad stuff. I got to apologize to you. I finally took a chance to look at it. And that's all I was saying to people is like, look, just take one day, 24 hours, a 24-hour time period and look into it. That's all. And people started to do it. So what I saw starting to happen, and what I think is happening even more these days, it's the lay people, the people in the congregations, that are watching the YouTube videos, that are looking the things up for themselves. They're opening their Bible up for themselves. They're doing some of the tests. They're buying the P900 camera. They're doing these things for themselves. And so what's happening is a lot of these churches are being filled slowly with flat earthers, being people converting into flat earth, and they're challenging their pastor. They're saying, yeah, dude, you're telling us we're supposed to believe the Bible, but how come you're not believing the Bible? And it's gotten to the point now where I know some churches are probably coming up on 50% flat earthers, and it's causing problems. So these guys are basically saying, we got to shut these guys up. So all of a sudden, in the last year, I started seeing more and more creation ministries trying to take a stand against this, and the outrageous things that they do to try to say, well, this is what the Bible says, but it doesn't really say that. Actually, that's what the devil starts out with in the serpent in the garden. Hath God really said? Did God really say that? And I'm seeing these pastors, I'm seeing these creation ministry guys do these unbelievable tap dances and mental gymnastics with the text. And I'm like, guys, what are you doing? And I think right now they're just trying desperately to save face. It's a pride issue, frankly. It's a money issue. These churches are afraid that they're going to lose congregation members and they'll lose money, so they don't want to take a stand. It's these ministries that have been entrenched with canopy theory and other theories and other things that, we've got all this volume of material that we produced before. We can't say we were wrong now. So instead, they got to attack us. But it's not working. I kind of feel sorry for these guys now, because as you guys, as all of us, the average person, as we all just start looking this stuff up for ourselves, we realize that they're the ones that are full of crap. So while they're out there doing all the mental gymnastic tap dancing, I'm just like, this is great material. I'm going to just do a whole series on Theologians Gone Wild and show how ridiculous their arguments are. So that's kind of how that got started.
Yeah, in particular, our good friend, Dr. Danny Faulkner, I put out a video probably a couple of weeks ago, and it really got to him. And, I was I titled the video, and I kind of paraphrased it, which I told him when he started bombarding me with messages on my Facebook. But really what he was saying, in a nutshell, was that, God would not teach any specific cosmology so not to offend any other cultures. He went so far as to say that what if he had taught a modern day cosmology, then all the ancients would have been offended, and it would have been crazy to them. He did it multiple times. So I even, took the quote, I put the, in quotes, everything, he verified that. So, I had asked multiple people, where am I getting it? You're out of context. That's out of context. What do you mean by saying that God would not want to offend other cultures by teaching a specific cosmology? And I'm saying this is what they're holding to, and they're saying that. And the reason why I know that Dr. Danny Faulkner is running away from this a little bit, maybe he went a little too far with that quote, is because Pastor Jason Hagan, in my story opening up this conference at Fellowship Baptist Church, told me the exact thing verbatim. He said, listen, he goes, it's not important. There is no specific cosmology taught in the Bible, verbatim. And again, that is completely verified. And anyone can check and ask him himself. Give him a call. He's right in the city. The two churches I talked about, they're there. Ask him. I'm not saying don't be rude about it. Every church has a right to believe what they want to believe. But at some point, you come to a point and say, I side with the Bible or I side with NASA and astronauts. All I'm saying is it comes down to that. And that's all I want from churches. Just at least put it in writing. We've made our decision. We're sitting on this side. Or we're sitting on this side. The idea of being able to be riding on the fence when it comes to these cosmology science is over. And again, this is what is happening, and we're moving it in that direction where one by one, and there's people here that are even from these churches, and they're suffering in silence. And soon, maybe not next week, maybe next year, but just getting encouraged, hearing things is like, now I'm ready. Maybe I'll write that letter. Maybe I'll, I'm not going to be, but they're scared about what's coming. But when multiple people start speaking up, now it's a real issue. And again, when they can't shut up like us, now they got a real issue, and now they're going to have to address it, whether it's through a debate, whether it's through a coordinated, and it's going to be a sad day when churches one by one start siding with science or the Bible, or being literal or not, and saying, no, we're going to actually take that's allegory, and it stands allegory. You've actually taken that verse, and you've made it that. But again, at least we will know where we stand. And I'll tell you one thing, there will be one particular denomination, I'm not sure which one, but it will be a big day when they take that stand, and they say, no. we, right across the board, are taking that side. Because, again, it will come to a point where it's going to pressure a lot of different ministries, churches. Where are they going to stand? And I think that, this discussion, while we can take the negative part, I'm also going to actually kind of look at kind of the positive aspects of what's going on when we talk about different people. So, I don't know, Matt, do you want to comment maybe on, what you're seeing when it comes to this?
What was the website you had? Somethingheretics.com?
Well, that's kind of funny.
It was probably from before.
Yeah, well, because I was getting blacklisted from all these other conferences and stuff and being called a heretic or whatever, and other guys that were starting to believe similar things to me were also getting blacklisted. I went and got the domain blacklistedheretics.com.
That's right.
So I figured,
I'll be there soon.
Eventually we'll outnumber them. I'll just welcome them over.
Add the pictures? You've added the pictures?
Yeah, I didn't do anything with the website yet, but I have the domain.
That's what I was thinking, though.
No, I would echo a little bit what Rob said and what I said in my deal. I think it's a matter of they have something they don't want to risk losing, especially the big ones, especially the big Christian research people. The same for traditional scientists. They have established themselves as an authority using that stuff. Like, that's their currency, right? And they don't want to give it up. And that's why it's such an amazing thing when you have a Rob Skiba who has a lot of that and is willing to say, hey, maybe I don't know it all. And that's all Rob did. He just stood up and was a shield for a ton of people in this room so that they could learn, including myself, in the safety of my own home. And once I figured it out, I was like, now it's my turn. Rob's done it. Like, I kind of see it as kind of not paying him back, but kind of, like, man, I support you. Like, that's awesome. And so I hope he gets the recognition he deserves whenever the history books write it, just because.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was funny because we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden it just came up on my text message, and it was my initial in 2015 message to Rob Skiba, getting your number. Hi, my name is Robbie Davidson, working on this thing, big admirer of your work. But what's incredible is the people that I'm running into saying, because he was Rob Skiba, and they heard it, they're like, what? But they're like, but it's Rob Skiba. I'm going to look into it. And I think a lot of this dialogue, when we come across someone, I can mention people even in my surrounding, and because I had a certain amount of respect, they're like, wait a minute, I'm just not going to laugh it off. Because there's a certain amount of respect. And you've affected a lot of people that way. I mean, I was talking to someone actually in a different one that has been a skeptic. Husband's been really saying, oh, no. And she's like, flat earth, you're crazy, but whatever, I'll encourage it. And just after last night, she said, Rob Skiba finally just did it. And he was all excited. He's like, my wife for, 2 years is nope. And just last night, she's like, Rob Skiba did it. Rob's affecting a lot of people. But, I mean, it's God that is actually completely speaking through him. And, again, there's so many times I hear so many stories. I'm like, man, if you even understand, because I get sometimes almost sad when I know that he's getting beat down. And, I mean, we all get beat down. It doesn't matter. The further you go in this, you're all. But, again, like you said, he kind of stood up. He really just kind of made that position. And then when you're like, oh, man, maybe he's going to give – he can't. Like, if he only knew, right now someone's being affected. Someone watching this live stream is being affected, right now with the ministry you're doing, right? So it's something that we have to obviously, look to and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and and another thought, talking about like history books and how, I forget who you were talking about earlier, the philosopher, but he was basically just like a cracked out Satanist. Which one was it? It wasn't, I can't remember. Who?
Pythagoras?
Yeah, just so.
Cracked out Satanist.
Cracked out Satanist. And so I was thinking like if this movement is squashed, like,
let's get those domains. Let's just get them all,
200 years, I figured like 200 years from now, like say this is all squashed and like the history books are talking about the great philosopher like PewDiePie or something like that, and people are like, yeah, he was a revolutionary and, all these people followed him. Anyways.
What about you, like Emmanuel? Like, I mean, obviously, with your church and stuff, and I know that, some people know of the channel and stuff, and, where have you been with that journey? And, like, I think I asked you at one point, I said, if they ever came to you, because, you knew my story, I told you that, but an ultimatum, how would you take that? Would you kind of be like, oh, or would you be like, whatever, and it was just one of those things where it'd be curious to know, in your world, what are you kind of experiencing, or what do you think is happening?
Well, the thing is, first you have to, once you make that decision of, I know I'm going to be persecuted for standing up for this truth, then, with that kind of mindset, you'll be prepared to handle the heat that comes with it. God will not give you more than what you can handle. That's found in the scriptures as well. You're not given according to what you cannot be able to bear. So I've been able to come across even like I spoke to a few people at my church. I am primarily, I will put this out there. I am primarily a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. And so
Thank you.
I do know that this is something that even in my church they don't talk about these kinds of messages. And these are things that everybody hushes away from, and then they say, you know what? Let's not get too distracted by this. But here's the thing: this is an important thing to bring out there, because if this message is bringing people, unbelievers, I'm talking people who are atheists, if this is able to draw them to the scriptures and actually say, wow, I thought I was a descendant of a monkey, and I thought that I was related to that baboon, or this. If this thing can actually get them to come away from that and say, whoa, you mean to tell me that I've been living in a matrix the entire time? And whoa, you mean to tell me that our reality is actually confirmed by the scriptures? And it draws them to Jesus Christ at the end of the day? Why push this away? It's one of those things that I did bring to a few people in my church, and first reaction, they laughed at me. It's one of the things that they laughed at me, and I said, hey, you know what? First of all, just before you laugh, before you further say this is nonsense and you back away from it, you have to ask the question: what would make pilots, engineers, and people who actually even like geologists and people who actually have studied a lot of things? I primarily am an engineer. I am a power engineer, and I also am a journeyman in an HVAC trade. We had to study all of these things. We had to study all the things about physics. In engineering, physics is a big thing, and you have to know what gravity is. You have to know what all of these things are. So yes, you just have to ask the question, well, what would make so many different people who are actually educated to come into this movement and actually say, listen, our whole reality has been it's been nothing but a sham, really. We've been living off of the tube. What you see on TV, that's basically what is dictating to you what reality is. But it's been propaganda that's been fed to you from childhood, and you grew up believing, oh, this is this is not. Oh, yes, in 1969 we landed on the moon, and what we did was we put mirrors on the moon, and we can be able to shoot. You can be able to prove that there. But prior to that, they were beaming laser to the moon and back prior to this whole 1969 moon landing in the first place. And so the thing that actually I began to, when I actually looked into this, I also found out, and I brought this to the attention of people also in my church, where I said, listen, if you look at the origin of heliocentrism, and you go to look at even Copernicus himself, what you will find interesting is he was a known occultist. And in fact, there's a Masonic lodge that is called the Copernicus Lodge, or Lodge Copernicus. I didn't make this up. If you go on Google, you can find this. Anybody can find this out there. Isaac Newton. That is also another occultist. In fact, there was a video that surfaced on YouTube, which was showing a ritual that was being done by Freemasons. And guess who they honored? Sir Isaac Newton. So you got to think, you got to ask the question, if these people are tied by one thing, and that is sun worship, what would then, how difficult is it to understand that they would ultimately try and create our reality to revolve around the sun? It's sun worship. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because like I said, you got the Egyptians, you got the Greeks. I mean, you see a consistency with the occultism getting the sun. And,
exactly.
You got Ra. So again, while I don't go so far as saying if someone believes in heliocentrism, they're sun worshipers, it's striking to see that nothing new happens under the sun. The stuff that was going on Babylonian, it's happening in a different package. Could it be? And I think you bring up a really good point as well when it comes to bringing up the occultic nature of whether it's NASA and the space agencies getting into these great pivotal men of, Pythagoras, and Aristophanes. And when you actually start digging into it, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, these guys all have pretty shady connections with the mystery schools and all these sort of things. But I have been able to talk to, other Christians, and, these things start resonating. And I think it's important that we understand whether it's biblical, that we do baby steps and not just jump right. I mean, it shocked us to the core, all of us. And we were probably, pretty primed. We'd looked into a lot of stuff. Can you imagine the shock, jumping right to this? We almost got to start in baby steps. But even non-biblically, I think it's important, too, to kind of slowly, work it in. Because, again, some of these things are just so incredibly profound. But when you do your research, you kind of see this connection, coming through. So it's something that's incredibly important. But I think what we'll do right now, we got, a few minutes here left. We should probably open it up to, people want to ask the panel or anyone here in particular, and we can maybe have some discussions, maybe what's going on. Maybe questions you have, what you're seeing. Again, we're seeing a lot, and we're kind of, talking amongst each other, and we're formulating plans to kind of move forward and do things, the best we can. But again, if there's certain things that you want to know and you want to ask, this is probably the best time to do it. What do we got, John, for time?
I was going to do Donahue style, so you just pick who you want, and I'll take the mic to them.
20, good. Yeah, can we put up the lights a little bit so I can see who has?
Jared, get those lights.
So you can bring those up a bit, and I'll try to see. Okay, we got one in the back right here.
All right. You can come meet me. That's fine.
I want all four of you, or who knows about this, I'm sure we all do, but share with the people about the CERN opening and the satanic service. Share with them the Satan statue in Detroit. Share with them the stuff that is eating people alive. Please.
I can't really hear it, but maybe just we'll get one person. Just take one person. Did you hear it?
The question was about CERN in Switzerland. How many of you are familiar with that? Oh, yes, the opening ceremony. Okay, well, quite a bit of people are familiar with that there. They were doing basically this. Since when was it so significant that you have to do a bizarre ceremony when you've opened up a tunnel? That's all they did was when they opened the tunnel in Switzerland. They then ended up basically doing a bizarre satanic ritual. And there's, I think it's the statue of Shiva.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
outside. Yeah.
Yeah, the statue of
the
Shiva.
god of destruction.
Yeah, and Shiva in Eastern mysticism is a god of destruction. And the dance that they were doing was actually a dance that was it's a ritualistic dance that points to the god of destruction. So why would they do those kinds of dances?
Exactly, and this is science.
It's
right. There's no
science.
They get to religion,
exactly.
And they're going. But what religions are they going towards? Is even more profound sometimes, right? But it's a good point. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, but in ancient times, the area where CERN is located today was a town called Apollonicum, which was a center for Apollo worship. And it all goes back to Apollo. I mean, everything's Apollo program. Apollo is a sun god, right? And if you take the CERN logo and look at the CERN logo, it looks like 3 6s stacked on top of each other. I mean, they're putting it right in front of your face. It's constantly Apollo 666 beast system over and over and over again. My take on that, and they're being very open and honest about it. I mean, you listen to these scientists talk about, we're opening up gateways and portals, and maybe we'll see stuff come in or whatever. You're like, whoa, what are you talking about, man? And these are people who believe that we got here as a result of a Big Bang. A big explosion created everything in the universe. And then they'll say, we are trying to recreate the Big Bang. The conditions of the Big Bang. It's like, wait a minute. You think we got here because of a Big Bang, and you're trying to recreate that? That's like not good. I have to explain. Why do I have to explain this to you?
It is intriguing too, because you bring up the 666, and in Revelations where it says, "Let us have wisdom, understand, 666 is number of man. And what is science pursuit? Men can achieve. Men can break the code. Men can. And I mean, if we start looking, I mean, in your presentation, you brought up all the variables 666 and like speeds and like, I mean, you just start bringing all of their globe heliocentric models and you just over and over and over. And what I found, significant was the number of man. And science really has basically completely indoctrinated man thinking we can achieve, we can do all things. Science is the answer. It will fix global warming. It will fix everything. They have the idea that basically science has not become like a savior, So, I think, it's great to bring on CERN, but let's go with another question to ask the panel over here.
Got one over here, Robbie.
Okay, yep.
My name's Guy. My wife and I are kind of new to this, and I came to be a believer before she did. I actually got plummeted with 1,000 questions on the way here, which I really couldn't answer all. So one of the questions she asked was, how do you explain meteor showers? I think we're supposed to have something like that going on right now. And also, I've been trying to find the Bible verse in the book of Revelations that actually says flat plateau. I can't remember where that is found. And God bless you all. Thanks.
Yeah, there's no, the Matthew's Bible, which is an ancient Bible, actually it's like 1st or 2nd Samuel, I think. There's a verse that specifically says flat earth. But none of our modern translations have a single verse anywhere that says the earth is flat, period, or anything like that. It's all of the descriptions that we do get that leads you, that's the only conclusion you could have when you look into it. So you're not going to see an English translation that specifically says that. It's all internal witness that you build upon through, a variety of different descriptions. As far as meteor showers, one of the things I find interesting is the question is the shape of the earth. And almost unanimously, people immediately start looking up. Like, wait. The topic is, what is the shape of the earth? And they want, well, how does the sunset work? How does the moon work? What's the lunar eclipse? What is this? I'm like, wait, let's figure this out first. You're changing the goalposts here. Let's talk about the earth. Mm-hmm. What are meteor showers? I have no idea. Personally, I don't know if anybody else here does, but I have seen them. Certainly have seen them. When I look into the biblical description of the stars, I mentioned earlier that all the stars are falling to earth. So immediately that tells me they are not suns with planets going around them. They are very small, very close, localized things. But we see throughout Scripture the word star and angel is interchangeable. Over and over and over again. There are sentient beings. Revelation chapter 9, I saw a star fall from heaven, and to him was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit, right? The hosts of heaven are interchangeable for the armies of God or the constellations. And the Israelites are always getting in trouble for worshiping the hosts of heaven. So all throughout Scripture, stars and angels are interchangeable descriptions. So the only conclusion I can come to, biblically speaking, then, is that stars are sentient beings. And the book of Enoch goes into tremendous detail and tells you point blank that the stars are sentient beings and that there's an angel named Raguel, I think is his name, is specifically in charge of the luminary class of angels to make sure that they're heavenly John Gabrielsons, they're police officers of the stars, to make sure that they stay in the courses, because if God put a gospel in the stars, then the stars have to maintain that imagery so that the story doesn't get messed up. But there are wandering stars that are messing up that story, and Jude says that those stars are reserved for judgment. Question, why does God need to judge a rock? Why does God need to judge gas? If these things are being judged, that implies that they did something wrong, which implies that they are sentient beings. So what are shooting stars? I don't know. Maybe they're cosmic chips patrol. They're doing their patrol. I don't know.
Yeah, another fascinating thing with stars is usually you give names to things that are living or sentient. When you talked about that,
God calls them all by name.
Correct. He gave them each a name. And it talks about the grains of the sand. He numbered the hairs, on our head. But it clearly says each one has a distinct name. They come in a different glory. So it's just really intriguing because, the animals are named. This is named. Stars
what I love
are named.
about this movement is that I don't see anybody ever skirting around the truth. And the Bible, I know, specifically says to be prepared to give a defense for the hope that lies within us. And I want to go into this with an open mind. And to me, that question is an important question as far as what we're talking about, because a meteor to somebody who doesn't believe is going to say, well, if we live in a dome, where the heck did that come from? Right? You know what I'm saying?
What if
I
a
want
fragment
to be prepared
of the
to
dome?
give an answer. I hear what you're saying, but I also want to be able to defend the hope that lies within me. I absolutely believe there's just too much evidence to support that we live on a flat earth. I know Scripture, and I've been taught my whole Christian walk to test everything in light of Scripture, and that's what I want to do. And I just, again, I love all of you guys, and I think this is something I hope that all Christians go into with an open mind and not be judgmental so quickly to push it aside. And so my wife and I, we are praying that people do have an open mind and take every question seriously. Thanks.
I would
Hey,
like.
Emmanuel, Robbie, I had a question right here. If you
Do you want to say something real quick on that?
Oh no, I was just going to add I don't know if I had showed you, because I went and I got the P900, and okay. How many people have the P900 here?
How many people are getting the new P1000?
That's a good advertisement for them, because that camera can actually allow you to see the stars in such a way that I was blown away. To be honest, I was blown away. I was able to look at some of the stars with the camera, and when I saw them, even like the star Venus, there is no way like those stars that we're seeing. There's a reason why we sing that song, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." They're twinkling stars, and when you look at them, they actually change colors.
Yeah, I haven't seen the sun twinkle once, right? They're supposed to be all suns, so yeah, it's a great point.
That's the thing. They change colors. And what I tried to do was I took a few images on my camera. I didn't bring the camera with me, though. It's still there. I took an image in 1 second, and it was, I think I captured it in the red color. And then after that, I took another picture, and then it was like a purplish type of a color. They changed. All of the stars are different. They go back and forth, and
cool.
It's
It's amazing. There's the technology that's helping us to see things in a whole new way, and it's amazing. John, do you have the next question there? Okay.
Hello, my name's Omar Moalim. I'm an independent journalist covering the event. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you, Robbie, personally, for letting us come here. I certainly admire the Flat Earthers' commitment to asking questions and skepticism and confronting authority. It's very much in the spirit of what we do as journalists, so I just want to put that out there. I have two questions. The first one is actually, because this is the only chance I'm going to get to do that, is if I could quickly poll the audience for my own research. I'm wondering how many people here today considered themselves creationists? Wow. Okay, thanks. So my real question is, throughout this, you're very much dedicated to questioning science as we know it, or at least scientific knowledge, and you do that by doing your own research and by testing things. And there's very much the motto is research, or ask questions. But the four of you have all brought up supernatural things that can't really be tested or proven. Emmanuel, you talk about demon spirits in your YouTube videos. Rob, you mentioned angels in your last presentation. Robbie, you told me that God communicated to you through a VHS, sort of a divine VHS. And Matt, you said that Christ physically touched you on the back when you were younger. So my question then for you guys is why don't you approach the beliefs about demons, angels, your own supernatural experiences with the same scientific rigor and skepticism that you do science? Why don't you approach the existence of hell without the same rigor, because I think to me and to maybe some of the people who are not creationists in this audience, it kind of undermines your credibility to not treat the knowledge of scientists with the same way that you treat the Bible.
I think it's a great point, Rob.
Well, my first thought is you just made a huge assumption that we didn't test our beliefs. That's a massively huge assumption. We did test our beliefs, at least I did. I've tested my beliefs. I've done a lot of research into why I believe the Bible, what the path the Bible has gone through in the course of history.
But angels specifically, that was the example.
But that's
that
an
I brought
experiential thing. That's something where you tangibly experience something.
It has nothing to do with the earth. It has not. I mean, it's irrelevant in the sense it has nothing to do with earth.
If I threw a baseball and hit you in the head, would you dispute the experience of that? Or would you say, hey, I got hit in the head with a baseball? See, I mean, it's experience that you can't deny. You got hit in the head with a baseball. Prove it's a baseball, right? Prove it's a baseball. I can only speak from my own experiences, both on the good side and the bad side, that I've had hardcore demonic experience that is pure evil, that I have experienced myself and have seen cast out in the name of Jesus. There are countless testimonies of people that of things happening in a supernatural sense that science doesn't have an answer for, that only the name of Jesus worked on. So, I mean, what do you do with that? You see it with your own eyes. You feel it with your own senses. Do you deny it or do you accept it? Well, something just happened.
I'll ask a question. Let's say me and you went shopping and I bought an apple. And then just one apple. And it's for me. And then I tell you to watch me. I watch this apple and then I take a bite. I'll ask you a question. How did that apple taste? What will your answer be? Will you know how it tasted? No. That's because you need to taste it for yourself. To be able to understand that it really tastes good or, this apple tastes kind of, So, me personally, I've had numerous amount of experience before. In fact, I actually was one of those who tried to run away from the gospel a few times. I tried to run away from it. I actually wanted to be a rapper. Trust me, I wanted to be a rapper. Glad that went down the drain. And then after that, I actually wanted to be a music producer. I wanted to be the next Dr. Dre. That was my motto. I was the next Dre is what I called myself. But that was all foolishness because I was trying to do things to actually fit in with the rest of the world around me. I wanted to be the same like everybody else. But I've had several experiences. I used to be a gamer. And when I played those video games, the violent video games, I experienced things even at night. Because there were times when I went to sleep, and then the game station would turn on at the exact same time. And this is not a game that just turns on by itself, even for updates. You gotta go and physically press the button to turn it on. I've had several experiences in which I know for a fact that we are not even, you might look around you and you might see that this is all you see. But I can tell you, if you experience God for yourself, or you actually experience what the real world is in our real reality, there are angels in this room, and yes, there are powers of darkness as well, all at work. I will tell you this because I experienced this myself. I heard an audible voice that did not want me to pray because I was struggling before with certain temptation. Something came up, and as I started to pray for the name of Jesus Christ, I heard an audible voice that actually was afraid of the prayer. And I can tell you, I have the testimony as well. I shared it on my YouTube channel. Someone called me. I didn't even expect this. As I was praying with this person over the phone, when I was mentioning the name of Jesus Christ, and that's where I'll tell you all, there's power in the name of Jesus, because when I prayed with this man, he was struggling with a lot of sexual temptations. There was a dark voice that began to come out from him, and I didn't even know what it was. So these things are real. I didn't even expect anything like that. People automatically think that, the minute you talk about angels and demons and that spirits are real, you're wearing a tinfoil hat and you're not rationalizing things. I tried to rationalize it before. But for how long will you rationalize these things before you realize, wait, there's something going on here that I'm not looking into?
Yeah, there's some things, obviously, that science cannot settle. And again, you can come at it and say, well, that doesn't apply the scientific method, but there is definite aspects there. Matt, do you want to say?
Yeah,
we got to wrap this up real quick.
Sure. I just think, if you close your eyes and you ask someone to touch you and you feel a hand on your back, I don't think you're supposed to deny your senses. And I think your question also, which I appreciate your question, it's a good question. It also comes from the standpoint that I think you're assuming that science has a better track record than the Bible, which talks about spiritual things, which I don't think is the case when you just look at the number of editions of science books and where it's come from. Yet we're still in the first edition of the Bible, which is
to be clear, that's not what I'm trying to say. I just detect a double standard.
Well, I want to bring up one.
It's a double standard because you're making an assumption. You start out with, we didn't test these things, which is false. I can't speak for everybody up here, but I've struggled through many things in my life, questioning my faith, questioning the Bible, lots of things. But I was a missionary for 6.5 years, and I saw stuff. I saw people get healed that defies all scientific explanation, supernatural healing in the name of Jesus. There are lots of things that you start with a preconceived bias of saying you guys have a double standard and you're not testing these things without knowing anything about any of us.
But I would also say that physical science is limited to physical things.
Sure,
well, absolutely. And when you see something in the spiritual take place, you have to say there's something beyond science.
But he did bring up a good one. I want to bring this up. On the flip side, you did bring up, why are we applying the scrutiny and the scientific method trying to prove hell? And again, it's very, very simple. They tried. They can only go 8 miles. Okay? So you know what? They've done it for us. We can't go. We can't prove it. And yet they'll tell us all the layers of the earth. Again, a lot of stuff that's taught is not science. It's theories of men.
There was some interesting stuff that they supposedly had recorded when they were down that deep. Very interesting stuff. And if you're squeamish, I would invite you to look up what that sounded like. So.
The fact of the matter is we would go that direction. Again, look it up. The furthest that man has been able to drill is 8 miles. Look at basically the dimensions. How do they know anything? Again, it's speculation, it's theories, and yet, when someone understands how little they can do, and yet they have all the knowledge of what's at the core, come on, that's not science. You're moving away from the true scientific method. But we got to wrap this up. But I wanted to just have each of you be able to, because we're going to have people that are skeptical. We've done this whole panel, and again, understand that this is the Bible panel. The next one up after the break will be the non-religious panel. You can ask all the questions. No Bible if you don't want anything. Rob will even answer non-Bible questions, absolutely. He'll be on that. So I want to just leave it with this because I think it's important. We've addressed a lot of the people that, might be Christians or Christians or believing in the Bible. But let's just leave off with one big thing. If you're going to say a quick 2-3 minute thing to someone that says, yeah, man, I don't believe in the Bible. Why should I even take you guys seriously when you bring up the Bible? If anything, I don't think you guys should bring up the Bible at all in the investigation on the true creation. What would you say, Rob?
I hear that a lot. And with this movement or whatever you call it, we do in these conferences, and sometimes there's complaints that, hey, I spent however much money to attend a conference. I didn't come for a Bible revival meeting. It's a legitimate complaint. I get it. But the simple fact of the matter is, when people in the Army, they used to say there's no atheists in a foxhole. Well, there's no atheists in a terrarium either.
It's a good point. I wanted to bring that up. You brought that up. Sorry to interject. But I'm curious, because I've had media say this. Is there anyone here that believes in flat earth that's an atheist? Is there anyone? Okay, there is one. Good. I want to talk to you afterwards, because I've been waiting a long time to talk to a flat earther that's 100% atheist. Or two? Good.
Because
come to me afterwards.
The alternative, if you understand the earth is flat, and especially if you believe it's an enclosed world system, then your only default is to say the aliens did it. So you've just substituted God for.
But then who created the aliens? And then who? You still have this. Either it's an accident. There's no created or intelligent design. It's just So, anyways, that's interesting. I definitely want to talk to you later. But yeah, again, it's for the skeptics are saying, but why should I take the Bible serious? Again, when we get into apologetics, why in the world are we even talking about the Bible?
I tell people don't believe a thing I say anyway.
Yeah.
Don't believe me. I'm just sharing with you what my experience is, and I'm always telling you to go test your belief. That's what look, okay, you don't believe it, fine, but test it. Don't just tell me I don't believe the Bible. Go research it. Go out and test it. If you guys want to talk about empirical evidence, well, I heard people all the time say, well, you never test your faith, you never test it. How do you know that? I've spent a lot of time testing my faith. Believe me. And there are other people throughout history, and some fairly recent guys, C.S. Lewis and what's his name? The evidence demands a verdict. Josh McDowell.
Yep.
And there are other guys out there who started out as hardcore atheists. Same thing. I'm going to go prove this wrong, right? I'm a convert, and by the way, I'm writing lots of books now on Christian apologetics.
Case for Christ. Another example.
Christ. Look, don't just say you don't believe it. Go out and test it. That's what this whole thing is about. I mean, that's why I have my website, testingtheglobe.com, because that's what I was doing, is testing what I thought I believed about the globe. And I would say the same thing about religion and
Emmanuel, what would you say to someone that's just basically like, man, religion, give me a break. Like, what would be your parting words to someone that's just basically a skeptic, like,
what he
about
said.
the Bible?
End of story.
All right.
Just gravity, just joking. No, I would, ultimately, honestly, I think it would be, when you share your testimony, when you share your personal, I don't like to just tell people, okay, hey, believe the Bible because the Bible is the Word of God, end of story, drop the mic, that's gravity too. No. Ultimately,
I'm joking.
People like to know that, this God that you worship, He is real, He exists, and He is a personal God. So for me personally, when I like to share my story, my journey, how we escaped the war in my country and how by miracles we were able to basically go weeks and basically a long time without food, no water, and we were not weak, we were not hungry, we were good. There's so many things I can tell, but I can tell you for a fact there is a God. By sharing my personal experience, then that's ultimately, I think, the best route to go about it. I don't like to just tell people to believe something without testing it themselves. It's best ultimately, and you can prove the Bible through world history. World history confirms the Bible 100%. You can go and look at world history, the prophetic events, all the kingdoms outlined in Daniel, Revelation. All of these things are exactly as how it was outlined in scriptures today. All the events happening today are all pointing us to the scriptures. That's what I'll just say.
Yeah, exactly. I would look up, just type in Christian apologetics, and you're going to get a dose of stuff, because I was the biggest skeptic. I'm like, I just question every single thing. And again, like I said, go into it really critical. Try to prove that sucker, but you'd be surprised what you find. Matt?
For me, it's the physical evidence of the reliability of the scriptures compared to any other ancient document that's out there. It's staggering. Like when you compare it to the Iliad or even Shakespeare, for example. We have no original manuscripts of any Shakespeare plays, but we don't doubt that Shakespeare wrote those plays. And, and so I don't want to butcher the numbers, but they're staggering. If it's important to you, go do the research. 1,000 to 1 staggering that the Bible is true and has not been altered over the years. So.
Well, Matt Long, his YouTube channel is Flat Earth. You got Emmanuel Lakonga, which is The Controversy 7 on YouTube. You got Rob Skiba, and I'm Celebrate Truth. And thank you so much for having us and doing everything.
Thanks.
Hang on a sec. I just want to add one more thing, and this is a prayer that is guaranteed to be answered. Guaranteed. God, if you're real, prove it. Reveal yourself to me.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's all about a relationship. It's not about a book. It's all about a relationship. And he actually wants to have that relationship. All you got to do is ask. So if you're really skeptical, start asking that.
Yeah. He actually likes skeptical people. Look at Thomas. Thomas, he actually embraces skeptical people. Go at him skeptical. Say, prove it. But be sincere. Give him at least more than a week. He likes to make you wait. Right, Rob? Getting that answer? Okay, thank you. We'll take the break, guys. Get up. What's that?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you did go off anyways. Go,
Guys, we're going to take a
Sorry,
quick 10-minute break. Is that what you just said, Robbie? Did you just tell them we're going to take a quick 10-minute break? Quick 10-minute break? Yeah. 10-minute break, guys, and then be back in here for the next panel. And tonight when the dinner is happening, if you can hear me on the way out, if you're in the VIP dinner, it's going to be in conference room number 5. Conference room number 5. Do you guys want me to turn these off? Just leave them on? Okay.
Check, check. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Hello, hello. Welcome to Fans.
So, how many?
Well, I don't know.
Test, test, test.
Because we don't have 5 mics.
Testing, testing. 2, 3.
Chair number 2.
Yay.
I'll sit there next to Bob.
Where do you want me?
Bob can sit in the same place, right?
Where do you want me?
Jared, I'm Ellen.
Hey, I just started talking to your daughter, right? Yeah. Yeah, she just said you're here.
Oh, no.
It's pretty rude.
I stand here. I might throw a lapel on you if you want.
Everybody, because my husband.
You guys pay money share.
Yeah, for you, man.
I'm so excited. Heck with you, like disappearing, man. You're like the competing around here. Hey, you're on stage, I'm on stage. I know. Kind of crazy. Are you going to the night?
Oh, yeah. It's good.
Initially, I was like,
I hope all of our mics work. Sorry, anyone monitoring the mic, I have to cough.
Check. This one's on. Good.
Check.
This one works. That's the other lapel. You guys want to wear one? You can wear a lapel there.
Check.
How do I know if mine works?
Check 1, 2. I can put a lapel on 2 of these guys, and 2 of them can hold a mic. Is that cool?
I got it. I did it yesterday.
Testing. Is this close enough?
I know you
I
did.
think we're okay. What do you think? Is this okay? I'm not going under my shirt.
I know that. You think I should?
I was hoping
I should research it? I said, should
No,
I research it?
No.
Awesome. Like bumper stickers.
Maybe she should get the mic.
Hello, testing. Oh, yeah, much better.
How are we going to make her louder?
We will bring her levels up when she speaks.
I feel like doing
Or give me a
mic.
handheld. If I have a handheld, I can put it right in my mouth. Is that better? Or is this working? Oh, it's working now.
Try it again. All right.
We're good. I'm good. Whatever you want to do. All right, thank you.
So how do we do the
What?
Mason sign again with our hands?
What do we do with our hands?
I'm just kidding. So how do we do the Mason?
Oh, you mean like are we doing this?
Yeah, again,
or?
Just make sure not to do what's that one?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
You gotta do
don't,
this, like
don't, yeah, don't do what I did. Yeah.
Like I'm taking off in a flight.
Right.
White knuckles.
Really? You gonna photobomb us? Really?
You should research Flat Earth.
What's this for?
You should research Flat Earth.
Oh, I've heard this is a thing.
You should tell her.
No, that's stupid.
You should do it.
Who gave you these?
I don't know. Cammy just gave it to me.
Oh.
Hey, Mark, did I leave my water? Oh. No.
That's because. Oh, you okay?
Forget about it. I don't know if he's okay.
Attention, everyone. I don't know if you're able to hear me or not, but if you're in the lobby or the anteroom, come on in and have a seat. We're going to start a panel
Get
show.
back in here.
And the topic, believe it or not, is Flat Earth. Who are
Research
you?
Flat Earth.
I'll wait a couple seconds till everyone comes and has a seat. We're kind of working out the sound issues.
Are they dimming the lights for this?
It's a little bright.
Yeah, I am a little height-wise compared to all of you, and also...
You're a little feedbacky.
I know if they crank up her levels anymore, she's gonna.
Well, it's on my phone. It's 3:33. Weirdly enough, perfect time to start, right? Well, I've really enjoyed everything so far on day 2 of the Flat Earth Conference, and this is the first time I've ever been to Edmonton. I've been to other places in Canada, and really happy to be here. And the mall is amazing, and I did
Doorbell.
buy a couple things there. Unfortunately, I said I wouldn't, but I did. Well, somebody open the door.
Dinner?
Wait, ready?
Avon?
There, it's coming. Project Bluebeam.
Is that, are we all Pavlov's dogs?
That's a really bad fire alarm.
That is the worst fire alarm
It's the
ever.
worst.
Oh, it's my microphone. But nobody knows what that bell is or how to stop it?
Anyone?
Glovers.
It's not your phone, is it?
No. It's nothing next to us. It's not anybody's phone. It's over the speaker system. It's
Wait.
Trolling has stopped.
If you were able to understand those beings,
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain where you are. Our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. We thank you for your
That was a fire alarm. I told him it's a fire alarm. He's like, it's the worst fire alarm ever.
It is. If there were a fire, we'd all be gone by now.
Oh.
Wow.
Is this a Canada thing? This is a thing up here.
You're very polite. You're not rude at all.
So somebody pulled the alarm, maybe, you think? Practical joke?
Stay where you are. Oh.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's
somebody
a good idea.
pulls the alarm in the entire mall.
In America, we're not that
We
smart.
hear it?
We just
So they could be down by the ice skating rink.
Yeah, so security will check it out.
All right.
All right, maybe it's gone now. What does everyone think?
A pre-alarm.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell sounds you have just heard as part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Currently, look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions from our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
So, what?
So, if David Weiss was here, David Weiss would be saying it's conspiracy.
The what?
If David Weiss is here, it'd be
Oh, he absolutely.
I guess we're all supposed to kiss.
Okay, listen up. I don't know what's going on, but this is my specialty.
Oh, no.
And they are letting us know that we need to stay in place. So I need everybody to stay in the room, okay? Make sure this door is secured because it's locked. Pull that door closed also, okay? So just everybody stay calm. If we can figure out what's going on, Robbie's going to go get somebody. Okay? I am calm. So, well, you know, I'm off duty. This isn't supposed to happen while I'm here.
Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication.
If it was a real fire, we'd all be toast. Just done. The whole place would be a goal.
Yeah. So no, what I like is, so apparently in Canada this is a pre-alarm. No, seriously, that's what he said. He said this is a pre-alarm. This isn't the actual alarm. This is sort of a warm-up to the actual alarm.
It's actually smart. In the United States, we'd all be running out.
Yeah, the United States, everybody panic, and we'd just be out the doors, pushing it, get out of the way, blocking with children. It would be incredible, but...
This could be a fire alarm pulled.
Oh, that's good. That
helps.
That's good for exits.
So if they're sending a security team, how long will it take them to actually find it?
That's a big mall.
Oh, first aid.
Is that a separate switch on the wall? Is that a thing?
You get choices. Press 1 for first aid.
Press 1 for a small cut on your wrist. Press 2.
Were those lights like that for your other one?
3 for fire.
What's the lights were for the other panel? Miserable.
This is when I wish there was alcohol in this. Anyway.
Do you guys think we should just go anyway? What does everyone vote? Go anyway?
Should we just go anyway?
One word at a time.
All right. I'll do it. Well, welcome.
All right.
To the most exciting panel show.
Well, you're going to wait through this part.
We'll wait for this part.
Part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Your seat can be used as a flotation device. Oh, boy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we should maybe do it, but it's going to be really distracting. You guys really want to go ahead
Well, if
anyway?
she keeps talking, probably not. It's got to be over in a second.
It's got to be.
Let's all will it to be
Well,
over.
I mean, look, the Canadians are out there. How long does this thing usually go? Anybody know?
Okay.
All right. We're going to do it. We're going to go.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the panel show. Yay! I'm your host, bringing the fire, bringing the heat. I'm Patricia Steer, and I'm the host of Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, which is a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. On the panel, we have Mark Sargent, who you're familiar with, of course, Jaron Campanella, Rob Skiba, and Bob Nodell. And what we're going to do, when we're not being interrupted by a woman's voice and a dinging bell, are allowing you to ask some questions of these panelists. Maybe, earlier when Mark was on yesterday, some people weren't able to ask him a question because we ran out of time, or maybe you haven't had a chance to ask the other gentleman a question. But first, I've got some questions for them.
The bell sound you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
It's a conspiracy.
It is.
Okay, well, John just found out from hotel security it is indeed a false alarm,
Yay.
and they're going to take care of it. So, until then, we'll have to deal with this.
All right.
Yeah. All right, so I've got questions for the panelists, and they're each going to take a turn answering the questions. There will be 4 different questions. Then after that, we'll open up the floor like we have in the previous Q&As. If you've got any question at all for anybody here. But first, let's just go with the questions I've got here on my phone. The first question, and we're just going to start from Mark and then move down the line. The first question is, what is your recommendation regarding how to explain flat Earth to others, people who don't know about it, to friends, family, coworkers? What do you think, Mark?
Ooh, wow. That's a good question. If I were to be approaching, and I'm sure a lot of you have done it, flat Earth to a first-timer, be it a friend, family, or coworker, oh boy. first thing I would do is I would size them up. And I don't want to use the Fight Club reference. I would go after what some of these guys have done in the past, which is I would go after NASA first. I would find out where their belief system lied. And I know you're up here in Canada, but I would go after the American space program, more specifically Apollo. I would ask them point blank, do you think the Apollo missions happened? Do you think the Americans went to the moon? No, they didn't. But ask them, find out. Because if they believe wholeheartedly that the Americans did go to the moon, then you kind of know where to go from there. I never ever recommend people go into like a family environment and say, oh yeah, by the way, the earth is flat. Try to warm them up to something first. That's just me.
All right, good answer. Jaron, your answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell sound you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
You know, YouTube's freaking out right now, right?
Same question you said?
Yeah, same question. How would you explain it to friends, family, people that don't know anything about it?
I just think it depends on what kind of person you are. I see so many people doing activism that are out and able to talk to people on the street, and I think that that's fantastic. And I just watched a video last night of somebody standing on a boardwalk with a sign. Unbelievable. I mean, the amount of people that you're seeing or that are seeing that sign and asking questions, and it's just that, research flat earth or flat earth is that thing that makes anybody stop in their tracks and really kind of pay attention. So it just depends if you're able to do that. I know that that's something that some people wouldn't be able to do in a million years. So if you're that kind of person, then maybe doing what my wife did for a long time, which was she had little cutout pieces of paper, and everywhere she went, she would leave them, whether it was the bank or ATM or grocery store. So in this way, she didn't have to really talk to anybody, but she's still getting the word out. So I think it just comes down to what kind of person you are.
All right, Rob, what's your answer to the same question? Family, friends, coworkers, strangers, what do you think is the best way to approach them to explain the concept of flat earth?
Well, right now I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. We start at 3:33 and the alarm goes off and we're all on stage. So I'm kind of thinking, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I'd be a little nervous right now. I don't consider myself a flat earth evangelist, so I'm not like out there, hey, guess what? But if it's something that it starts up in a conversation, same thing these guys said basically. As a public speaker, I'm trained to try as much as possible to understand my audience and relate to my audience. So kind of feel out where they are. And like Robbie says, I got to figure out where you are with 9/11 and the moon landings. Because if you're on either of those pages,
Ladies and gentlemen,
conversation's over.
She believes in 9/11.
Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself.
I'm going to memorize this before it's over.
Our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
But the curvature math is a good one for me when I want to start the conversation and talk about it. Seeing things at a distance you're not supposed to be able to see, water bending, atmosphere in the vacuum. Those are the kind of my three go-to starting points.
All right, Bob, before she speaks again, how would you answer the same question?
You are now free to move about the country. All right. Well, me personally, I would take the advice of another well-known flat Earth YouTuber, and when you just don't talk about Flat Club, pretty much. So I would never start out trying to talk directly about flat Earth. I usually will talk about something a lot easier, a lot more common sense, like what happened on 9/11. I'll point out the free fall speed of the buildings, falling in 10.2 and 10.6 seconds respectively. Find out what they feel about that. If they're completely against it, then you're probably not going to get very far with flat Earth subject at all. So, but if they're open to it at that point, then I would start going into some of the things that we discussed on Globebusters yesterday.
The bell sound you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system.
We know.
Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any danger to yourself. Please wait for further.
It's like she recorded it in one take, too.
I think it is.
Apologize for any inconvenience.
We don't think she's reading it every time. Oh, no.
All right. He pulled it.
Yeah, he probably did.
They do, however, ask that you leave money in the tip jar for the guy that's been ringing the bell for the last
I think Roland pulled the alarm.
Yeah, I think it was you.
So yeah, that's pretty much about it. Is feel them out first. If they're not open to any other conspiracy, then it's probably not a good idea to talk about it. And it's kind of like what Morpheus said in the Matrix movie. Once people are past a certain point or age of indoctrination, it's dangerous to bring them out of the Matrix.
Good answer. Good answer. All right, the next question is, and Mark, you're going to kick it off, and we're going to do the same thing.
All right.
With an interruption coming really soon, right?
It's like a game show, really.
Are there any personality traits that make a person more accepting of flat Earth or less accepting of flat Earth?
Ooh. Traits that people have. Yeah, like if I was going to try to approach somebody who I thought, just off the cuff, if I was going to approach somebody that I thought might be receptive to flat Earth, I might go after, it's probably a safe answer, but I'd go after an artistic person first, because artistic people, you can almost plot a graph on open-mindedness. And, if they're creative, if they have a lot of cool little hobbies on the side, that's what I'd probably do. I'd probably go after an artistic person.
All right, Jaron, you next, but you can answer what would be less likely or more. That's up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Well, I think that the education system has grooved people that are, yes men, the people that don't buck the trend, that go by the rules, that do any assignment no matter how ridiculous it is. Those people went on to get good grades, went on to get college degrees, and are the kind of people that are going to be real tough to talk to because they are, they're so groomed to be exactly what the system wants. So if somebody didn't...
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell sound you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Currently locating immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
They're done. And then people that didn't have a college degree, but I went to college for like a month. So I think people like that kind of saw school for what it really is, or I may have not seen it completely at the time, but those people are open to it. They saw issues with the way we were brought up. They saw the issues with what we were taught in school and how that stuff just kind of went away and it wasn't important. So I think those people might be the best people to talk to. They can understand what we're trying to say.
Okay, Rob, any personality traits that might make somebody more likely or less likely?
Very much the same as what they both said. Right-brain people. I tend to gravitate towards, anyway, as a right-brain person myself, tend to be way more open to stuff. But when you're talking with an artist, I don't have to explain too much to them because they understand things like perspective and how things like that work intuitively. So those would be the type of people that I would immediately have an easy conversation with, I think.
Bob.
And I'm going to make this easy and say exactly the same thing. Artistic, right-brain type people, creative people are much more open-minded, and they think a lot more outside the box. Yeah. So absolutely, those would be the type of people I would approach.
All right, back to Mark Sargent for the third question. What do you think is the most important aspect of Flat Earth that we might need to concentrate on to get the word out as we move forward? And that could be experiments or activism or more YouTube videos or, well, what do you think?
Yeah, and this is probably the only one we'll probably disagree on because everyone's got their own take. But moving forward for me, anyway, is going to be trying to reach the top tier media as fast as possible. Networks we haven't gotten to. Prime time we haven't gotten to. I mean, we're reaching out, and the documentary and things are happening in that arena. But I believe in hitting as many people as possible as quickly as possible.
And so, even when the media attention is negative, as we've seen in some aspects today, you still are of the mindset that.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I'd rather the media come at us aggressively than ignore us. So that's my take.
All right. Same question to you, Jaron. What do you think is the most important aspect of Flat Earth we need to get out there?
Probably getting to be some kind of unit. I just think it's too segmented, and it's not something I intended or expected from the beginning. You should be able to tell by now who's in this for real, who's not, and it's just something people can't pick up. They still think that people have been doing this for 3 years and making 300 videos, and that they're doing it for some nefarious reason, or that they don't believe what they're saying. So until we all can operate as, at least, I mean, you know, Rob's a Christian and I'm not. We get along great. We sit next to each other at dinner. We talk all the time. So we have the common goal. We have common beliefs. We both, you know, want the world to be a better place. So people need to recognize that. The science side recognizes it, which is really sad. They'll back each other up till no end, even if they totally disagree. We just haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. What's been frustrating to me in any kind of a truther movement, flat earth or otherwise,
Ladies
is...
and gentlemen, the bell sound we have just heard part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Carefully look for any immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over the communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
All right.
I echo what both Mark and Jaron said. But in any truth movement, a lot of times what happens is when you start to realize everything's a conspiracy, or at least you get to the point where you think everything's a conspiracy, you start to think everything's a conspiracy. Everything.
Yeah.
You know, we started at 333. See, it's a conspiracy. You know, we must be Freemason shills. I think the community needs to first look up the word shill and understand what it actually means.
Right.
And have some substance behind what if you're going to accuse somebody of something, at least have something to back it up. Don't just make it up. I mean, what happens too often is it becomes an infighting situation, and then nothing gets done. We're too busy pointing fingers at the other guy with no substance to prove anything, and you know we don't go anywhere. So I would say we need to get a lot more unified. And okay, fine, if we find some rock solid thing that somebody did that's wrong, fine, maybe we should expose it. But otherwise, you know, why are we fighting each other? We've got enough problems, you know.
Yeah, look for the person's fruits. Really, I mean, it's fairly simple. And if people have been in it for a very long time and have been consistent and don't seem to be actually hurting other people, well, probably they're not a show.
Probably.
Bob, you're the last one to answer the same question, which is, what do you think we should focus on? Would it be activism, or how should we get this message out?
What I think we should focus on is exactly the direction I'm trying to take Globebusters into, and also FE Core. And we need to get out to the public, you know, some of our results in our experiments that we have found, the laser test, the gyroscope test, the ring laser gyroscope, the microwave RF test. We are striving to do them to the very best of our abilities and, you know, document them very meticulously. And then after that, we target the educational and professional industries with those results and ask them to either replicate or...
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble.
All right.
Yeah. That was live.
Yeah, it was
She
live.
was doing that live every time?
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Was everybody like in the mall frozen this whole time?
I know, that's what I was hoping. Like, that'd
Yeah,
be
we
weird.
would like to wonder what
Sorry, Bob.
people in the mall
That's okay.
were doing. During
Did they have to like all stay still?
Were they freaking out? Oh, wait, they
Maybe
were probably
right.
looting.
Maybe on fire.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
But anyway, yeah, so I think, you know, once we get all these results collected, we try and get those out to the academic institutions and, you know, have them evaluate what we have done and then corroborate that. And that's probably one of the most effective ways that we can actually get the word out. And also issue a challenge, maybe even with some money involved, to some of the higher education institutions. I know that there are currently several challenges out. Not one is the $5,000 NASA Eclipse Challenge, where some individuals are releasing all this data about eclipses for the last 50 years. And the challenge is to corroborate it and fit it into the heliocentric model. Thus far, nobody has taken that challenge. So these are things that you know are very telling to me, because anybody can use an extra $5,000. But so if we can get this information out there and issue challenges, ask them to match what we have found, I think that's one of the best ways we can advance our cause.
All right, well, I'm wondering, once they've already said they've located, why is the bell still ringing?
I know.
But this is the last question, and if you've got questions for any of the panelists, you'll have the opportunity to ask it after this question, so start formulating. Mark, what do you think the best piece of advice you could give to a brand new flat earther would be?
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell sound you have just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm.
Didn't we just?
Yeah, we went backwards.
Immediate danger to yourself. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Either the bell lady lied or somebody pulled the alarm again.
Yeah, it's probably some kids going, "Oh, we're not stopping this." All right. Sorry.
Best advice for a new flat earther.
A brand new flat earther coming in.
Yeah, some might be here right now.
Yeah.
Converted after sitting through yesterday and today's presentation.
If I was running into a flat earther that was, for the first time, if you're in like a week or a month, first thing I would tell you is don't forget what it took for you to get there. Meaning, the most common problem I ever run with anyone in the flat earth community is that once it takes them. So we plant the seed, it gets in their head, and then they flip and they become a flat earther. And then for whatever reason, they forget how long it took them. So if it took them 2 weeks or 2 months, they forget that entirely. And then all of a sudden they get so full of enthusiasm and they rush to their family and say, oh yeah, I can convince these people in 2 hours. I can convince these people in a cup of coffee. And they just get smacked in the face because, it's like, they don't understand. It's like, why can't you get this? I got it. So, no, you forgot how long it took for you to get there. It's not your job to convince people in 2 hours. It's just plant the seed and let it grow naturally like it did in you. There you go.
That's a good answer. Jaron.
Yeah, I'd say that I tell them to watch, if they're watching videos and they hear something that they think might be a fact. I mean, there's so much wrong information out there now that, even I'm responsible for it. I mean, when we started doing this, a lot of people got things wrong or made mistakes, and those things have been cleaned up, but you'd have to be doing your research to see that. I mean, if you think that you know the answer to some question, or if you're going to say that the horizon always rises to eye level, then you need to look into that and see that there's reasons why when you get up higher that you are seeing a little bit of a drop, but it's because the horizon is apparent.
You just heard is part of our first stage alarm system. Please remain where you are. Presently, our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm. Please wait for further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any inconvenience.
Wow. If David Weiss was here, man, he would be...
David Weiss was here, he would freak out.
So, yes.
It's basically it. Just to make sure you double check your facts, because there's, like I was saying about the horizon, it's an apparent horizon. So if you just have to be armed with the right kind of information so that you're ready to answer questions or to not make more videos saying wrong things and just kind of further
we've all fallen
setting
into
us back.
the trap where we've heard something on a video and it sounded right, and it did show flat Earth to be true, and then told that to people, and then found out later, well, that word doesn't really mean that, or that...
Yeah, one of the worst things I did was on Globebusters. Somebody had said that quote by Tesla that said, the Earth is not a planet, it's a realm. And I mean, I just went straight to Globebusters and said it, and then I remember saying it, and as I said it, saying, I didn't check that. I didn't check that. I got to check it after the show.
Everything.
After the show, I spent hours just looking for that. Please let me find that damn quote, but it wasn't there. So, I mean, ended up it was... I think that guy Daryl something from Facebook is the one who just kind of made it up.
There's a lot of memes out there you'll find on social media that are attributed to people, things that famous people have said that may bolster flat Earth, but you've got to make sure you find out if those
really make sure
really said it, because oftentimes they didn't.
Right.
It's too good to be true. Rob Skiba, your answer.
There's a, shall I say, ancient proverb that says that a prophet is hailed everywhere except his hometown. And that's true. You can see that in many different cases. Your friends and family, you're probably not going to convince them yourself because they know you. So what I would say to a zealous new flat earther is say, look, find the best videos that were convincing to you, and just say, hey, check this out. Let somebody else do the hard work. You can do the follow-up, but send them to a video that you, for somebody that you trust or whatever, a convincing set of videos, and let your friends and family watch those, because they're really probably not going to listen to you. That's what I would say.
All right. You're the last one to answer the question, Bob.
Okay. Well, for me personally, I would have to say do not play by their rules. Meaning that when people try and debate you on flat Earth, and a lot of people, a lot of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bell sound you have just heard
That's
is
new.
part of our first stage alarm system.
She went on break.
Yeah, she was on break.
She's like, I'm out of here.
Our response team is on their way to locate the source of the alarm.
Did recorded messages take breaks?
Apparently, yeah. In America, we just hit the play button.
For further instructions over our communication system. We apologize for any.
In America, we just run and scream.
Yeah,
We'd already been back in.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, back to what I was saying. A lot of people want to go out and talk to people about it, and you will get ridiculous responses like, "Well, if the Earth was flat, it would be daylight all day long, right?" Well, that kind of response only indicates that the person that you're talking to has no idea what the flat Earth model is actually about. And so what they're assuming, obviously, is the sun is 93 million miles away. Well, if that was actually true, then you probably would have 24-hour daylight, stuff like that. So they will constantly try and drag you into their mathematics, their model, and say, well, how is this possible? One example that I can give is there's another pilot that challenged me to navigate the flat Earth using the longitude and latitude system for the globe. And when he asked that, it hit me. It's like, oh my God, this is really what your problem is. You're trying to ask me to navigate using a flat Earth or a global longitude and latitude system, which obviously does not work the same way on a flat Earth. And he couldn't get his head around that, obviously, and he still to this day issues that challenge to all flat earthers. But it's very clear that there would be a different type of setup if we had one for the flat Earth, possibly like a grid system or something like that. But the bottom line is you've got to not play by their rules. Remember that when they are speaking, they're always speaking in terms of their model, and you'll find that it very seldom ever applies to the flat Earth. And if you're not on your toes, you'll get sucked right into that argument, and then you'll get your butt kicked. So,
good advice. And another bit of information I just thought of. Remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life? Everyone's seen that? Yep. There's a quote in there that every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Wow,
so
there a lot of wings. Where's that guy who said he didn't believe in angels?
We've all been promoted.
So now's the opportunity, if you've got a question for anybody here, including me, that you can ask. And the lights are blinding me, but I do believe we still have microphones set up on either side. Anybody? You guys can see.
Who's got the mic?
So,
and it'd be awesome if, I don't know, did they say their name and where they're from?
Okay,
oh, yeah.
If you could say who you are and where you're from, I'd like to know. Yes, and please. I don't know if they did that in the other panels.
Yes.
I'll need that microphone.
Who's?
You will. I will. You guys will have to share. It's going to cost me $5. Yeah, so Patricia,
you can just
raise your hand.
The mic.
Yes. In fact, I do know we had one question up front here, though, that they wanted me to ask. So here you go.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the reporter there, where he was saying that we were always bringing the Bible into this. And I just wanted to say that the people that are pushing this agenda always bring Satan into it. And as Rob showed with Apollo and everything else, it's constantly showing, their Luciferianism. And it goes much deeper than just a lie. It's your salvation and where your soul's going to end up. And, I just wanted to really thank everybody for coming here and telling the truth. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Does anyone have a question? Just raise your hand.
Right here. I'll make my way back.
Oh, no.
Oh, here we go again.
Well,
Cheers.
Awesome.
Sorry, this here was a question for Rob. I was going to ask you earlier on, but whenever you guys are going to talk about going on the offensive, is it...
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble.
Please be serious.
Thank you for your attention and your cooperation.
I don't trust you.
So what research are you currently doing, and who are you partnering up with that could really propel this movement forward? Somebody who's really mainstream that sort of would partner or co-author some of your research material.
Oh my God.
Well, for me, part of the going on the offensive, some of you may be aware of this, but Dr. Robert Sungenis, who was behind the movie The Principal, recently...
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble. You may
love Canada. I do.
It's not polite anymore.
So, Dr. Robert Sungenis, the guy who did The Principle, recently published a book, Flat Earth, Flat Wrong, 730-page book, in which I'm mentioned about 180 times. So it was like, wow, okay, I guess I should feel honored by that, but wow. So, at first when something like that happens, you get hurt. I mean, it's like, geez, this sucks. Then I was like, you know what? So I got his book, and I started looking through it.
Our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble. You may resume your activities. Thank you for your attention and your cooperation.
So I start looking through the book. Now, obviously, he claims to be a Christian and claims the Bible is the source for truth. So, there are lots of science-type stuff in that book, and I figured, well, I know my gifting, I know the things that I am wired to deal with. So I looked at just the Bible side, it was about 80-something pages. I'm like, I'm going to attack that because his eisegesis is unbelievable and pretty easy to refute, in my opinion. And we are scheduled at some point to do a debate. But I went and immediately got the domain isflatearthflatwrong.com. And so my goal is to partner with people that want to help me to demolish this guy's arguments, all of them. Now, obviously, on the Christian biblical side of things, there are guys that I trust that I would.
As per the fire department, you do need to return to your rooms to close your windows, as it is fairly smoky outside.
What?
It's a forest fire.
Is that a real person? I thought that was a recording.
It is a real person.
I know it is now.
It's very smoky outside. Wow.
They don't mean us, do they?
Until we're chased out.
Where's the head of this thing?
So his book is Flat Earth, Flat Wrong. I got the domain is Flat Earth, Flat Wrong, and I want to partner with people on all aspects of it, from the scientific side of things to the biblical side of things, and the people that I trust that I can give I have a WordPress site.
Ladies and gentlemen, as per the fire department, they do ask that you do close your windows in your room, as it is fairly smoky outside at the moment. Thank you for your cooperation.
To give them author accounts on my site where they can just rip apart his book, take whatever section that you want, and it's open to all you guys as well to help me out with this, but to partner with other people because he's making the rounds right now. He's one of the big detractors out there. But I'll say this at the same time as saying, he's about 80% on our side. When you really get down to it. So I would actually like to see him converted, ultimately. But part of my strategy right now, as far as me going on the offense is going after.
As per the fire department, they do ask that you do return to your rooms and close your windows, as it is fairly smoky still outside. Thank you for your cooperation.
I want to have so many articles on my website that if anybody looks up Flat Earth, Flat Wrong, all the Google searches are going to be from my site, not his. And then what we may be able to do then, if everybody's open to it, if the idea is that it be an open source place for people to deposit their information, that anybody who's so inclined can take any of that content on there and make a compilation book of their own. To go up against him. So, theoretically, we could have a lot of different books because let's say everybody on the panel here contributes to it and I have my own take on it. Well, I can, if we're all open to that and it's open source, I can say, well, Jaron's got a great quote right here. When Jaron says da-da-da, and I could put together my own book that would have his information. He could do the same thing. Everybody could do the same thing. So we need to start getting stuff out there, more than just our YouTube, I think, and we need to be more mindful of the need to unite. And to go on the offensive. That's my opinion.
And do people know that Sungenis is the one from the movie The Principle?
I think a lot of people do. I don't know.
Yeah. Which is a great movie if you haven't seen it. It absolutely destroys the globe.
He destroys heliocentricity from a scientific point of view, and as well as from a biblical worldview. From both. So, like I said, he's about 80% on our side. So, but. I'm not backing down from these people, and the creation scientists especially. I mean, what they're doing to the text is they're just torturing it. So.
And we would work with mainstream scientists. Nobody here would be opposed to that. The mainstream scientists are the ones opposed to even considering the idea. Perhaps someday it will happen, but perhaps someday the bell will stop ringing too.
Maybe not.
Patricia, we got a question right here.
Hi, Connie from Red Deer. If the moon is closer, quite a bit closer.
As per the fire department, they do ask that you do return to your rooms and close all windows, as it is hazy outside.
Hazy now?
Thank you for your cooperation.
If the moon is closer than what we've been told and
Yes.
smaller and goes in a predictable path
Right.
and is within the dome,
Sure.
why could we not visit it?
Is that a question for me?
Or
Anybody?
Oh, anybody.
I'll
Go ahead.
answer just in the fact that I think that the idea of people landing on a ball is not possible. By teaching everybody that it happened, it kind of subconsciously makes us think that we could live on a ball. So, I mean, personally, I think that no matter what the moon is, I don't think it's a big rock in the sky because it kind of breaks, a lot of the laws of physics that I would think exist. But then again, it is a celestial item; it's not a terrestrial item. So, I mean, for me, I just I don't think it's someplace you can go because I don't think you can stand on a spherical rock unless you were on the very top of it.
They're telling us right now their problem, even today, is getting through the radiation. The Orion program was the new program that followed the retiring of the space shuttle program. And there's a famous video many of you guys have probably already seen now that NASA put out saying, talking about the Orion project and saying one of our biggest problems right now is figuring out how to get through the radiation. Of course, anybody with half a brain should be raising their hand and going, why don't you just put on the same jumpsuits and get in the same tin can you did 50 years ago? And go clean up Fukushima while you're at it, if that stuff actually works. And I think Mark's got a great idea in his challenge to, maybe you can talk about the challenge about the vacuum chamber.
Oh, yeah, I'm probably going to die in a vacuum chamber. Just so you guys know. No, I tried to...
Ladies and gentlemen, as per the fire department, they have asked that you do return to your rooms and close all windows for the time being, as it is hazy outside, so thank you for your cooperation.
And return to your rooms and make your beds.
Yeah, no. What's amazing to me is in America, that would all be pre-recorded, and it sounds like they're doing it, reading it live every time. We just hit a play button.
The other thing is we don't actually get closer to the moon. If you notice, when you go up towards it, it gets further away.
Yeah.
So it isn't like we see it full moon and we start flying in an airplane and we get closer to it. So it doesn't seem like it's almost like what do you call that? A lenticular. I don't know if you've ever seen those things. You walk by and you can kind of see them change.
Yeah.
Is that lenticular? Is that the name?
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the moon is like that, or the atmosphere is like that. That it's portraying for each person. Yeah, like a rainbow. So that's what it seems like to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble. You may resume to your activities. Thank you for your attention and cooperation.
Real quick, the challenge I came up with was born out of people that were interviewing me saying, is there anything we can show you that would get you to believe in a ball, a globe, a sphere anymore? And I used to say, put a 4K camera on top of a rocket, and let it run. Don't turn it off. Don't edit anything. But I thought, that's going to take forever. No one's ever going to do it. And so I tried to boil it down even simpler. I said, let's do something on the ground. Because up until now, I don't think there were any tests on the ground. And what we can do is we can create a vacuum chamber, in all sorts of different universities. And we should have plenty of spacesuits for the last 50 years because they all worked perfectly. None of them ever had a problem. And so I said, okay, give me a NASA suit, put me in it, put me in the chamber, and then pull the lever and see what happens. Tell me how I don't die. No, it sounds good in theory.
I think you should put them in there.
It's also
videotape it.
Yeah. The other part was I want to go in with somebody else. It's not just me. I'd rather have somebody from science standing next to me.
Hands with you.
Yeah, holding hands while we both go down. But it's true. That was the thing I came up with because a fabric suit, a fabric bag of air cannot survive in a vacuum. And I challenge any of you here to even come up with a sci-fi explanation. That's how I knew it was going to work because I couldn't even come up with anything in movies and television. I could not imagine the technology that's supposedly in that backpack that stops a suit from going tight as a snare drum and bursting.
And why that technology isn't used for so many other things
Oh, yeah.
for all of us here on Earth. Even the way they say the suits can protect from micrometeors when on the ISS they're out doing spacewalks.
Yeah.
Let's have that stuff on our cars on the exterior, on our children's bicycle helmets. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Great.
But you were also speaking of the bell, but having like different things in there, like a balloon, so we see the balloon expand in water.
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble. You may resume to your activities. Thank you for your attention and cooperation.
Thank you. But yeah, you were talking about putting a balloon in there so it expands in water, so it boils. And,
the three
the
tests. The bell, because the bell won't make any sound.
To verify that they are, in fact, in a vacuum chamber.
Right.
You do that test, those 3 tests first. Then.
Well, have them in there with those things.
Yeah, because it can't be faked. Well, you can't fake all 3. And you could, those 3 things would cost you all, $4? It's easy to do.
We're going to go to you, Eddie, with the microphone, but first to the back, the gentleman who has the microphone with your question.
I'm Whitney. I'm from
Wait.
school.
Wait.
Louder, 'cause this is,
No.
I think
Wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, our response team has located and rectified the source of the trouble. You may resume to your activities. Thank you for your attention and cooperation.
I will hand it to Canada. They are thorough. Absolutely thorough.
My name's Whitney. I'm from here as well. This is for Jaron. I've gotten to talk to just about everyone there so far, except for you, Jaron. My question for you is more along the line of your Freedom of Information request to NASA and the development on that. I haven't heard anything on that lately. You may have put it up on your YouTube channel or something, but I haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't. Finally, it took a month till I got the money back from my bank, and then I was able to submit the payment again, and it went through this time. Then she told me July 17th, she said she would have it by the 30th. I never got any calls. And then just day before yesterday, she called and told me to make the final payment, that they have the video. So as soon as I make that payment, then they should ship it. So we'll see what we get, because I had to send them a hard drive. So there's something on there, according to her.
Can you let everyone know what?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, it's going to be all released to archive.org and then also on my channel in its completion, whatever I get.
My name is James from Calgary, Alberta. Just a question for everybody. When you first started discussing Flat Earth, have you ever had any close friends or family, maybe extended family, that have reacted badly to this? Maybe got aggressive, overly hostile, or just cut ties with you, and how have you dealt with it?
I started out by saying, if you want to see somebody get in touch with their inner psycho, just mention that you're looking into it, and you will see sweet old ladies go bat crap crazy right in front of you. Your grandmother that was like the sweetest woman ever, like, go insane. And I've seen, wow, people that I never in a million years would have imagined losing it go crazy in front of me. And, you know, that's what made me think there is something on a spiritual level here. Like, I can't explain it in any rational sense, why somebody would go that berserk in front of me just at the mere mention of, hey, you know, I'm looking into this flat earth thing. Yeah, I've lost friends. You know, for the most part, my family has been really cool with it because they've been along with me on the journey. And like I said during one of my presentations when I'm showing my dad stuff, who was also a pilot. So I got him going with the attitude indicator. I'm like, Dad, it's been about 20 years since I've flown. I think I remember how can you explain how the attitude indicator works again? And he went through the whole thing. So I popped that on him, and he's like, hey, that's a good question. So, my immediate family has been pretty cool. But, I've lost good friends, and other people have just taken off.
Yeah, I haven't had anything so much like that that I can think of. Nobody got real upset. Although I do think a reason why people would is, everything changes in your life. Your parents pass away, your grandparents passed away, you change schools, you change homes, and the one thing that never changes is the ball earth. So it's kind of like that baby blanket for people that, it's just the one thing that they thought they'd never have to even question because it's been a ball since you were born. So I think that could be a reason why people lose it, because that's kind of all they have to hold on to,
Most of my family was okay with it or neutral with it because I'm a pretty strange guy sometimes anyway. It's true, somewhat eccentric. But I did have a cousin who I'd only talked to maybe twice a year write me an email and just lace me with profanity. It's like, what the bleep, 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 bleep. And it's like, and I hadn't written her in probably, I don't know, a year at least. And that was her opening line, and I save it now as sort of a little inspiration. I'm also saving it for if we run into it. We haven't spoken since, and I have to go through her twin sister but yeah, I mean, it does happen from time to time.
I told my sister and my brother, my sister said, very interesting, I know you're intelligent, so there must be something to this, but I don't have time to look into it. We've all heard that. My brother said, have you become, quote, a crazy Christian, unquote, and are you a Holocaust denier who hates Jews? And I went, what about anything I said?
Right. Nothing to do with that.
And you've known me all my life, and it was a weird response.
But that's a taught response. I mean, that is a trained response.
Yeah.
Patricia, we have another question here.
Yes.
Lynn from Idaho. I'm a flat earther, but if you look at the night sky, there's a ton of heliocentric model evidence. I mean, you got the moon that looks 3D, like a sphere with the craters. You got, phases of the moon shine into the sun like it's reflecting off it. You got planets that look like they're orbiting with us around the sun. You have Jupiter and moons. You got comets with solar wind tails. So either whoever created the flat Earth decided to put all this in place to mess with our heads, or hologram technology came along at some point, although look at all the flaws to it, so they had the technology to do it, but they didn't do it perfect, or what? Help me out here. So.
Who wants
it? Want me to jump
I
in?
think some of the things you said may be true and some might be...
See,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you call it heliocentric, evidence, but at the same time, why? The saying I like to throw out to people is, God created the sun and the moon, but it was NASA that told you what they were and how far they were away, and what.
Then you see it.
Yeah, and what's happening in the sky. So, I generally jump back to, what we can do now. Like 2001, A Space Odyssey. I challenge anyone to go in with a Blu-ray and look at that moon when they're heading towards the moon. It's gorgeous. It's flawless. And we did that movie back in the 60s. We're talking about powers and technology. It's way, way beyond us.
And if it was all heliocentric proof, I think that then they would have said it was heliocentric from the start. But they obviously didn't, because no one had taught it to them when they were, in kindergarten.
Right.
So I think we are all very conditioned to look at things on that kind of spherical model, and then everything makes sense in the planets. And but I myself struggle with. I watch Jupiter and its moons, almost every night, and it is interesting. But then again, I've never been shown, enough evidence to say that Jupiter is bigger than a basketball or bigger than a 10 foot or 100 foot. I don't know how big it is. They tell me it's 100 times as big as the Earth, and I think that that's ridiculous, and I don't think there's evidence for it. So until they prove those things to me, I just look at it as a light in the sky, and it's got 4 little lights that seem to circle it or follow it.
And what happens up there doesn't really make what we're standing on like what's up there.
True. It's way different. I mean, look at all the life that's here, and we know that there's, even NASA admit, there's no life anywhere else. So it's a very big difference between this place where, well, I feel the Earth is the biggest thing that there is by far. There's nothing even close to the size of the Earth.
Except Elon Musk's ego.
There you go.
Yeah.
And also, you have to remember that the heliocentric cosmology is the new kid in town. Before that, every culture on Earth, going back as far as recorded history, has had the cosmology as a flat, stationary Earth. All of the, we talked about some of the instruments that were found, like the Antikythera device and astrolabes and stuff like this, that absolutely show that these predictions and this cosmology was just as viable on a flat Earth as it is on the heliocentric model. It's only been the last 500 years, basically, that they've been back engineering it and also making up a lot of their own facts as they go along. Like putting the sun out to 93 million miles. But before it was that, it was much further, and it's also been much closer. So it's been a trial and error process for the heliocentrists also.
Any other questions from the audience?
Hi, my name is Jessica Mason. I'm from Grand Prairie, Alberta, 5 hours west from here. My question is, for a lot of us are on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and as you know, they are censoring big time. So posts are getting taken down, people's YouTube pages are disappearing. I mean, I'm a nobody, and my posts are deleted all the time. So do you guys have any alternative media sources that we can go to when this all shuts down?
Very good question.
Yeah, I think that's probably very much on all of our minds. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into the content and trying to build your subscription base and everything else, and like at any second, it could all go away. I have yet to find the alternative yet. I am still looking myself because each one that I have been told about has its problems also. So I don't have that solution. But what I've been doing with my subscribers is saying, look, I'm creating an email list. Get on my email list, because if one day you go and find my YouTube channel's gone, that's about the only way I'm going to be able to contact most of you. So that's what I'm taking steps to do right now. But I don't know, maybe you guys know of some alternatives. But I think that's on all of our minds right now.
No, it also seems like YouTube's got the handle on video players that actually play well in a browser. And it's just, I don't know about everybody else, I can't get videos to play anywhere else. It seems like, so if you want a decent running video with that works well, it's like YouTube's the only place. But if anybody has any
it's the only game
sites,
in town, and they're also playing with it, as Marcus pointed out before, with the search.
I'd also like to say that don't think, and I know the Alex Jones thing that happened just as we were coming up here, probably weighing on all of your minds, but don't forget that was an individual, and Flat Earth is an idea. I mean, technically, we could all die in a plane crash tomorrow. Not going to happen. But at the same time, Flat Earth keeps going. I mean, Flat Earth is a massive, massive idea. You try to shut down Flat Earth at this point, it would be very, very difficult to do. I have to quote real quick the Google YouTube engineer that finally, after he left Google for a certain amount of time, his disclosure agreement lapsed, and he did an interview. And literally, out of all the things he could have picked in terms of topics, he was asking how search engines work and how things are recommended. And he goes, look, when somebody watches 20 Flat Earth videos in a row, what do you think we're going to recommend? We're going to recommend that. We are still this secret cash cow for YouTube, because a lot of people go into it. And I'll finish with this. When the adpocalypse, if you guys didn't know what that was, when YouTube wanted to get some of their bigger sponsors back, and they were going after some of the channels that were out there and shutting them down, Flat Earth did not take much of a hit in comparison. Yeah, there were a few channels that took hits here and there, but I can't speak for any of the guys here, but I lost no videos from YouTube, and most of the people I talked to didn't lose any videos. Flat Earth is bigger than just a small bias that's out there. When people come against us, it's not that easy to pin down. I can't even imagine if I was even working for YouTube how I would take out Flat Earth. There's too many ways to sneak it in. But anyway.
Keep using the social media that you've got until otherwise informed, and use it a lot. No matter what you do, just try to talk about it. I think, the whole Fight Club thing, don't talk about it. I really think we should try to talk about it as much as possible. But of course, know who you're talking to and approach them a way that would make sense to them. And then if you're shut down, don't waste a lot of time with them. And don't engage in fighting with them. You can never convert anyone by fighting.
One more real quick thing. Don't pick a fight if you don't have to. That's the Fight Club reference, which is, look, if you know they're going to come at you, fine. If you're in the mood for a fight, sure, go ahead. But don't sacrifice friends and family and coworkers just because you want to ham-fist it. Show some delicacy when you're doing it.
Sometimes being right is something that you know. You don't have to force it down someone else's.
Patricia, we have another question?
Yes, and then there's a gentleman here. And Eddie, you wanted to ask the question too, right, eventually? All right.
Great. This is kind of a mix. It's Rob from Windsor here. Thanks, guys, for answering all the questions that you have. So, Shambhala, right? We have the North Pole. We have Santa Claus lives there, maybe. And the testimony of Admiral Byrd going there. What's your kind of thoughts on that? And then going into the the stars and the sun being as for times and seasons of what's to come and what is happening now. Your thoughts on astrology with the occult and New Age and just all that kind of wrapped up. Yeah, not to.
No, that's okay.
We've got about 5 more hours.
Anyone?
I would love to go north. I mean, I think that if anybody can ever orchestrate some sort of journey up there, that would be the best thing that we could do. I don't think you'd make it. I mean, I'm not saying that they would kill you. I just don't know if logistically it could happen. But I think it's of huge importance to see. Were you talking to Bob earlier about the idea of the magnetic mountain?
Yeah.
I think that's highly possible. That there is some sort of Mount Meru there at the center. That's why they don't have flights that go right over it. They seem to go askew. They don't let anybody within a certain range there. So I think we got to get there.
Yeah, I agree. For a while, all of our attention was on Antarctica, what's going on, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on down there for sure. But the temperature difference between the south and the north is dramatic. I mean, it's just crazy how different it is. And the north is way more reasonably accessible. I'm sure that there are probably some sort of government restrictions and things, but in terms of climate and other things, it's a lot more accessible. And when you start, at least when I started to look into the whole Rupes Negra, Mount Meru, sides of the north, Mount Zion, whatever you want to call it, this thing that's supposedly in the center of the north, it gets very interesting. In fact, most of us went to schools that had the Mercator map hanging in our classroom. And if you look into Mercator and read what he wrote to John Dee, Mercator wrote this letter to John Dee describing in quite a bit of detail about this magnetic lodestone mountain with a circumference of 33 miles, I think it was, or is it diameter, I forget, of 33 miles, that has 4 rivers going out from it with 4 island-like small continents around it. And, many ancient cultures had an understanding of this place and regularly wrote about it. And when you see that writing about this place, it goes all the way into the 1940s with Admiral Byrd, I think there's something to it. And I'm now, I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I am now.
What?
Oh, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I am way more interested in the north than I am in the south.
Yeah.
And I think if there's any way to get there, I would, look, if we can at least get to the landmass, that's cool enough, because the rivers are pretty wild, and the description of the 4 land islands there are pretty amazing. And I would like to get as far on the land to go see the whirlpool, because there's something like 400 or 500 miles across, whirlpool at the center, that the mountain is in the center of this whirlpool. Wow, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
What about the stars and the signs and seasons?
I would actually just like to get into Aurora Borealis really quick with the whirlpool, with Aurora being a light and being a hole, like Borealis. Light coming from a hole, what's up with that?
Okay. How many of you guys have seen the video that I did with Andy Hoy and his tabernacle model? Anybody raise your hand? Anybody see that? If you haven't, you should look through my video list for the video that I did with a guy named Andy Hoy. And mind you, the information came to me at a time when I was really beat down, when I first got into this with Mark in April 2015, I started blogging like crazy and writing and putting up what eventually became testinglobe.com. By August, everybody in the world's coming after me, attacking me. I got sciatica. My wife's father, my father-in-law is in our living room dying of cancer. It was a rough season. And I said, screw this, I'm done. I put up Phil Collins, I don't care anymore, on every page of my website. I put up the Phil Collins video, I don't care anymore. I was like, forget it, I'm done with this. Then I get this letter from an atheist saying, how dare you? And it was actually an atheist that made me put it back up again because of how much it meant to him. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What was the original question?
Aurora Borealis.
Oh, Aurora Borealis. So I'm in the middle of all this, I'm way down low. And I get this package in the mail from this guy, Andy Hoy. And usually it's something like that. It goes in the I'll get to it later pile, which I almost never get to. I finally opened it up and looked at it, and he had these very detailed, he's an engineer and he's a Hebrew scholar. And he had spent time in Israel studying the tabernacle in the wilderness. And as an engineer, he's saying the usual rectangular box that is usually depicted as the ancient tabernacle doesn't work from an engineering perspective, nor does it work from a linguistic when you look at the text and everything. So he went back to the text and looked at it in Hebrew, and as an engineer, he said, wait a minute, everybody's assuming you connect the long curtains on the long ends. The text just says connect them at the ends. Everybody assumes the long ends, and when you do, you get a rectangular box. But he says the text doesn't demand that, so I wonder what would happen if I connected it at the short ends. And when he did, he ended up with a 6-story high circular dome tent, within which is the Holy of Holies, that has curtains set up with cherubim on them. And if that is a blueprint of something that Moses was shown in heaven, I believe he may have been shown what I call the Yahuwah terrarium, or this place that we're living in which case the throne would be right above it, and the curtains in the tabernacle represent what we call the Aurora Borealis.
Isn't that exactly what that cosmos endopleidiosis from Christian topography?
Oh, yeah, the Egyptian monk, Cosmos. Yeah, he said something along those, along those lines. So, I don't know, but it seems rather interesting that we may have this thing called Rupes Negra, Mount Meru, the sides of the north, Mount Zion, right under the location of the throne, and we have this curtain. And if you've ever seen the Northern Lights, and we're hoping to in the next couple of days maybe, it looks like these wavy curtains up there in the sky. So
that is a fantastic answer.
Wizard of Oz, with the behind the curtain lies the truth, the man with all the power. There's a lot of these things that are connected.
But yeah, look up that video. I did a whole thing on it with Andy Hoy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you first for coming to Edmonton. Everyone who came, thank you. Welcome. Please come back next year. It's super fun. Yeah. I'm from Edmonton. My name's Grace. More than a question, I sort of have a comment. I'd like to go back to what you were talking about earlier about how to talk to someone who has never thought about flat Earth before. And I'm nervous. I'm going to lean on you.
Don't be nervous.
I think that Mark was right when he suggested going after first NASA and the American space program, because I think that's what happened to me. And regardless of your politics, if everyone could just kind of take a deep breath and go, and forget who you like and don't like and what the media especially has told us, because as you've pointed out and as most of us know, we are being lied to. And I think that's something we can really all agree on. Like, that's a really good jump-off point almost, is to point that out, that, yeah, we're definitely being lied to about some things, right? So with NASA, for example, I saw with my own eyes and watched a video where NASA, in a compilation with Obama actually, admitting that we cannot leave Earth's lower orbit. Yeah. So if we can't leave Earth's lower orbit, and the moon isn't in Earth's lower orbit apparently, how did we go? And if it is within Earth's lower orbit, then we're being lied to about where it is exactly, right? And the size of it, too. And that's where I think the moon is really interesting. And there's other reasons, too, of course. When it comes to, let's say, Trump, for example, he stood with Buzz Aldrin beside him, and he said, and Buzz made all kinds of weird faces. I don't know if you've seen that video. Anyway, regardless of what you think of Buzz Aldrin even, Trump said that it's going to be difficult for people to understand why we're creating a space program when there is no space. And you can Google it. Trump says there is no space, regardless of what you think of him. And so he also said, I forgot off the top of my head, I'm sorry. But it's interesting. If you pay attention, I think, just to what we're being told on that level, it shows that we're right. We are right about being lied to. It's a good place to start, I think, right? And if there is a reason why we haven't lived or left Earth's lower orbit, what is it? And if it is a dome and you're talking to scientists, suggest something like plasma. Get them thinking, like, what could it be? It doesn't have to be, and that was the other thing I wanted to mention too, is that I don't think you have to be religious to believe that we're being lied to, or that there's a chance that there is a dome or something above us, something, call it a firmament, call it a dome, call it plasma, call it whatever you want, but there's something. There's some reason why we can't leave Earth's lower orbit. What is it? Right? So, I don't know. Just a thought. Just a way to maybe get the ball rolling. That's all. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a beautiful voice, by the way.
Thank you so much, Patricia. You are so gorgeous. No one would believe your age ever, ever, ever.
Okay. I do want to respond to one comment that you made, about why is it that we can't get out there. And a very interesting news item came up, I don't know, about 2 or 3 years ago from the University of Colorado, and then was also verified by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And in this article, they describe that they have found a Star Trek-like shield about 7,000 miles above the Earth. And they say that it is so bizarre that it seems like it's an absolute solid object. And they have no explanation for it, but they're saying, well, this has got to be what's protecting us from the Van Allen radiation belts. But yeah, just the fact that came out by CSU and then was verified by MIT, that in and of itself should really make people question things. Yeah. So.
Hi, my name is Ellie from St. Albert. And I'm just wondering, with all the different space stations that we've had up there, the American, the Russian, the international, do you guys know of any experiments that have benefited mankind?
It's a great question. A lot of money, and no. And you'd think that these actors that they hire, or astronauts, whatever you want to call them, you'd think that they would have something to say when they're asked, what experiments are you doing? And every time they just say the word science over and over again, and it can't even make up one. So it's pretty pathetic. But I think that's based off what she said too. That's where we need to start with people. Point those things out. NASA says that every astronaut is one of 4,000 applicants. I mean, we should be expecting so much higher of a caliber than we're getting. Yeah.
It seems like they play with toys on the ISS. Really, the gorilla suits, guitar,
water ping pong every time.
Showing us how toilets work and how you wash your hair. Things that would amuse children, stuffed animals flying in the air, and continually growing lettuce for some strange reason.
Yeah, John and I always make that joke that you can look it up, just Google it, and then change the time that you're searching. Go back to 1990 to 95 or 95 to 2000, and they're always, they grew lettuce on the ISS for the first time. And it's the same thing over and over again. So
a few different times.
Yeah.
And they present it every time as if, it might start to get you to believe in the Mandela effect, as if it's brand new information.
Right.
And I think that's how they're, like the book 1984, when they change the truth and then throw the old story down the memory hole where it would burn and disappear. That's how they're tricking everybody who's not paying close attention. Just saying a totally different story, and everyone just believes it's true. And that's why it's really important for us, all of Flat Earthers, not just who's here, to remain vigilant and keep track of these lies.
Yeah, take screenshots and things like that. Because you're absolutely right. That's what scares me about the Mandela effect. I don't think that the Mandela effect itself is true. I think it's just bad memories. But then what they're going to do with that is once everybody's convinced it's just our bad memories, then they start removing things from history, and the answer is going to be, oh, we remembered it wrong. Right. So that's the plan, is by making us think, oh, Sex and the City, how do we spell Fruit Loops? People are going to get used to the fact, oh, it's just our bad memories, and then when they start plucking things off the internet, it's going to be our default answers. Oh, I guess I just remember that wrong, so be careful.
They already went to Mars in 15 years. They could just put that in the news.
They're not on Mars?
Oh.
They're little robot cars.
Yeah.
It's already working on Mars.
Yeah.
Next question.
There is no dark side of the moon, really. As a matter of fact, it's all dark.
Speak a little aloud.
There is no dark side of the moon, really. As a matter of fact, it's all dark.
Yeah. I got it.
Okay, my question happens to deal with, I haven't done it, I got lazy, I forgot, I don't know what the reason is, I've always wanted to get back into it, but I'm seeing, and I believe, and I accept, I don't know what to think, because again, I haven't done my homework. What's the deal, what they're telling us, the moon didn't start glowing until 1977?
I've never heard that.
Nobody?
Well, I know where you're going with this, but no, the moon, this was talked by a few other people, and that is, when did we all of a sudden notice that the moon was glowing? Beforehand, like the entire Apollo space program. I think I know where you're going with this, which is the entire, when you go up and look at the moon in a full bright moon, tonight or whenever it's full, it's really, really bright. Extremely bright, white. In fact, you can't even look at it with night vision. And yet, when you look at all the photos and movies of Apollo, it's this dark, ashen gray. And we'll take it one step further in that picture that Rob shows where the moon is transiting in front of the Earth. The color's all wrong. It's completely off.
When the astronauts are on the moon, supposedly, why isn't this just this crazy bright white light shining out?
Oh yeah, it should be totally overexposed.
That's interesting too, because what you see I've looked into Galileo's drawings. They say before they had a telescope that they couldn't see the markings on the moon. There's no drawings of it from 1400, 1200. So why wouldn't you be able to see what we can clearly see with our eyes?
Someone changed the light bulbs.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's no drawings of it. I mean, they didn't really. And in fact, they thought it was like they didn't even think there was any kind of craters or anything on it until they got the telescope. So that story's never jived with me. Again, you know my opinion of history, so I don't really put much to it. But
yeah.
Interesting.
Another question?
Yes.
I find it really fascinating. I've heard so many times Barack Obama scoff people who believe in flat Earth, and also Hillary Clinton saying so many times, "We've hit the glass ceiling."
Yeah.
I find it fascinating for people who don't believe it. Why would they use those kinds of terms? Another thing I want to bring up is my relatives prefer to be entertained than educated. That scares the hell out of me.
Yeah,
I think we all have relatives like that.
Yeah, let me throw in a quick story because I know we've got 7 minutes left. To that point, I went to a party and they wanted to watch a movie, and they sat down and it's like they had a choice between JFK, the movie from Oliver Stone, and Serenity. And I asked them which one they wanted, and almost everybody who had already seen Serenity, which was a space movie, an entertainment movie, and JFK almost no one had seen. And I said, and I could recommend it. I was going, look, JFK is a brilliant film. Why you got to watch this, at least once. And the reply back was almost unanimously was, we don't want to learn anything. We want to be entertained. And it was like, ugh, you guys are killing me.
Person before who said, why are you always looking into things? Sometimes I just don't want to learn.
Yeah.
First and last date there.
I get another question.
Very different kind of people. Yeah,
Hi, my name's Brian from Red Deer, Alberta. So my question is there any credence to this pole shift that you keep hearing about? I guess if the Earth's flat, there wouldn't be, but there is obviously magnetic fields up north.
We just automatically hand the microphone to Bob.
Go, Bob.
Okay, well, my answer to that is there could be a pole shift magnetically. And in fact, we are witnessing this happening at this very moment. Earth's magnetic fields are radically changing, and in fact, to the degree that a lot of airports are actually having to rename their runway numbers because the magnetic bearing is changing. And I find this interesting because we're also seeing some really radical changes, weather-wise around the world. And one thing that I really find interesting is the whole story of the rapture, and also how this time around, when the world ends, that it's going to basically be happening in fire. Well, if you follow the electric universe model and understand how this plasma actually works, if magnetically we do actually change this polarity, it could very well cause that thing that I was talking about today about, what is it that determines up from down to actually change over. And that could be the catalyst that could cause things to actually start going up, and it would also wreak havoc with the plasma system. So I would say that it is possible. We are definitely seeing some very interesting signs regarding that, not to mention all the heat waves. Of course, a lot of that could also be brought about by other artificial manipulation of the weather. But it certainly right now has enough evidence that I would be watching it very carefully.
Just in the interest of time, one more here.
Hi, my name's Christina. I'm from Edmonton area. I just was wondering what your guys' theories are with eclipses. And like from the Bible standpoint, like in Egypt during the plagues, there was darkness. So was that an eclipse? And what is an eclipse?
Yeah. In the Genesis account, it says he makes two great lights. One to rule the day, one to rule the night. It doesn't say he makes a great light and a rock with this reflector. We see in other places where it says that the moon will not give her light. So, from my perspective, from a biblical perspective, that they're some sort of light-generating objects that are up there. And if they can be turned on, I suppose they could be turned off. Now, eclipses are different. It's a scenario where something's going in front of something else. Now, I had I don't know what else to call it. It was more realistic than a dream. I don't know if it was an open vision or what it was. I don't know. But it was very vivid. I was in this dream vision, whatever you want to call it. I was on a lake doing a long-distance test with the P900. And there was this really loud boom, like this crazy loud, deep boom, and the sun shut off. Like, it's just like, the sun just turned off. And it was beyond pitch black in my vision. And so in that, what does it mean? I have no idea. Maybe, I ate something before I went to bed. I don't know. But it was a tangible darkness, and that's the same type of darkness that's described during the time of the Exodus. So, what does that mean? I don't know. If they are just light bulbs that were turned on at the day 4 of creation, then they could be turned off too.
Other question?
Actually, I have 1,000 questions, but I'll keep this short and simple. My name is Bonnie. I'm from Sherwood Park. And I just wanted to let the people in the Edmonton area know that I really want to start having meetups here. So, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Mark has graciously offered to put the notices on his channel so that everyone will know when and where the meetups are scheduled, and we hope to have a great turnout, and we hope to do this at least once a month.
Cool.
So hope to see you all soon again.
Yeah, good idea. Excellent.
Might have time for one more here.
Hi, my name is Veronica. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta. Kind of following up with the last question, I just wanted to know if you guys believe in the sun simulators.
The sun simulators?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen video of one of them that they have, the hexagon-looking one, which is pretty crazy because we know that they can put up things 8,000 pounds on balloons. So, that's why I've had a couple people try and offer to either buy my way down to Antarctica. And they're Globers. They really want me to go to Antarctica and watch this 24-hour sun. And for me, it's just not worth the money because I don't think it would be proof because they put you in one spot with a bunch of people at a camp. And if I see a light just go around my head, I still am standing on a frozen tundra that's getting 6 months of sun. And I'm not sure that that's enough when I've seen that sun simulator. NASA's got 2 patents, I think, for it.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely, they're not getting patents for fake things, I don't think. I definitely think they have it. What for? I have no idea. They've got all kinds of telescope stuff down there in Antarctica, too, that's crazy that we don't get to see very much of. Huge things, 10-story high reflector mirrors, and who knows what they're doing with that stuff.
Does anyone else on the panel believe in them?
I don't know enough about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've seen some of the same stuff that he's
I
referring
think
to.
they exist by what I've seen.
Yeah, I believe definitely. I've seen the patents that you can. I mean, you can just look
But
them
of
up.
course, we all know that patents can be fake.
Well,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Right.
But certainly, someone somewhere has been thinking about this and took the time to draw up schematics and go
But
through.
why?
Yeah.
What are they planning on using it for?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And especially if they believe global warming and all that, why would you want to add another sun?
Melting at some parts of Antarctica because something is buried there. I mean, these are things you start thinking about.
Yeah. Also, look how far lighting technology has come. For example, Jaron and I both have these 6,300 lumen flashlights, and when you look at the bulbs of them, the LED bulbs, there's almost nothing to them. It's crazy. So when I look at that and I think of if you had an entire panel of them the size of something very large and a good power source behind it, you literally could create something like the sun. So I don't think it's far-fetched out of our technology at all.
No. Yeah, it's about as big as that screen over there, the one that I've seen, hexagon-shaped and probably 100 bulbs on it. And I've never seen it turned on, but I've seen the light.
Yeah.
And there's some movie, and Mark's a movie expert, and I always forget titles and quotes of movies. Maybe you'll remember where there are people and there's a sun simulator, and that one doesn't work, and they have to go to another area to live. Ring a bell?
No. Sorry.
In movies, and oftentimes things in movies have something to do with something that's really happening.
Patricia, I think we have time for one more, and I'll be right here.
Last question.
Hi, friends. My name's Michael. I'm sure most can agree that the spell of Hollywood has a big influence on the collective masses, and being our neighbors across south as opposed to down south. with Trump pushing out his Space Force, to me, just perceiving with the generation kind of growing up now, seeing these space indoctrination movies, just my speculation, I'm sure there's many agendas, but to me, it's just a military recruitment scam because, they can never use enough meat shields, any military, whatever country. But I just wanted to know your guys' take of what the Space Force, which is bollocks in my opinion.
It's a good one to end on.
I think you're 100% right. That's what better way to get teenagers and college kids to be interested in joining the military, so they want to go into the Space Force. Oh, sorry, you got to start out here. We don't have a place there, but we have somewhere in the Marines. So I think you're absolutely right. It seems like it to me.
That seems to me to be a perpetuation. If the Wernher von Braun deathbed testimony is true, then he said it. It's all based on a lie. But there's always another excuse for space-based weaponry. And creating a space force, it's a militarized thing. That's what we're talking about. Ronald Reagan's Star Wars, right? From my perspective, biblically speaking, we see that in the end times, the sky is going to open like a sky dome. And it tells you that the sky is going to roll away like a scroll. And that Yeshua is coming back on a horse. And Revelation 19:19 says that all the nations of the world have gathered together to make war with the one coming on the horse. So for me, when I look at this whole agenda for space-based weapons, that's what makes the most sense. That they're trying to find a way to make war with God. And if we believe we're in the end times, that day may be approaching when the sky dome opens up and they want to be ready for it.
I read that former astronaut, in quotes, Scott Kelly said when Trump started talking about Space Force originally, said it was a, quote, dumb idea. That's interesting. So they're creating their own opposition with asking Scott Kelly to say that.
Another thing might be the alien invasion, that you want to have even though it's fake, you have your fake military team to combat it.
And that was what Wernher von Braun, he said the last card is aliens. And remember, it's all a lie.
Yeah. Do any of us think that the last card will be played in our lifetime?
Yes. Yeah.
Probably sooner than we think.
Yep.
Right. Well, we're aware, so we'll at least be able to tell our neighbors, don't believe. Don't do what they tell you to do. But we'll be the last ones.
So
that's it. It's been fun. And we all have a new appreciation for bells, I think.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Thanks for putting up with all
Thanks
of that.
to everybody in Edmonton. You guys were great. Yeah. Thank you so much for this.
Give it up for the panel, guys. Give it up. Patricia Steer, Mark Sargent, Jaron Campanella, Rob Skiba, Bob Nodell, Emmanuel Lakanga, Big Matt Long, and of course, the guy that put this all together for us and did a lot of work. And I can tell you this: give a round of applause to his wife and children first, because that's a lot of work for Rachel and the kids to do this. But, there you are. I was looking for you. Robbie Davidson.
I got it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say real quick, I just want to close it out by really thanking a lot of people that need to be thanked for this incredible event that took place in my home city, Edmonton, Alberta. And really making history in Canada is a huge deal to me, but also doing this for the community. And hopefully everyone's had a great time, learned things, maybe been inspired to go to that next level. One of the themes for 2018 with FEIC is we're going to take it to the next level, and we are taking it to the next level. But for me, I want to truly thank God, because nothing basically has come without Him, and I'm so incredibly thankful. My beautiful wife, honey, I love you, and you're so incredibly not just supportive, but honestly, this conference and the things that you see with Celebrate Truth and the things I do would not happen if it wasn't for her working behind the scenes and getting so many things done, accomplished. We're truly blessed with a beautiful family, and for me, having my daughter and my new baby boy, Robbie Jr., here to make history with Daddy, it's a special thing. It's an incredible time. And I want to honestly thank the great speakers, Rob Skiba, Mark Sargent, Patricia Steer, Emmanuel Lakonga, Jaron Campanella, Bob Nodell, and Matt Long. Absolutely incredible. As I get to know you, you guys are integral, and I consider you not just friends, but incredibly decent people. You guys are really the core. Your hearts are in the right place, and you're genuine and true. And honestly, you're looking at a really good amount of people that are representing that they want the best for the community, and they're trying their hardest. And again, we can't always do the right thing all the time, and we come under criticism, and some days we wake up and we're hated, and some days we wake up and we're loved. But again, we go through a lot, but honestly, I know these guys, and we're all trying to be true and really do this right. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Conference Director John Gabrielson. John, thank you so much. I mean, you kicked it off in Raleigh, North Carolina when we made history, and you were such an integral part, and you really helped make things really happen. And I mean, you even went beyond with Canada, and it even went even smoother. And I'm so thankful that you're helping me, knowing that you've done some incredible conferences. And it's incredible how the first time I got to meet you, you invited me to your conference to speak. And now here you are directing my conferences. And buddy, I couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Obviously, our Masters of Ceremony, Rick Hummer. Honestly, with Rick Hummer, I've got to know on such a deep level, and I can tell you one thing. Rick has a heart of gold. When I opened up and I said that he's intelligent, very funny, and he has a heart of gold, it is absolutely true. He will do anything for someone to help them out. He will talk to strangers. He is a true man of God, and it's a pleasure to be a friend and honestly know you because you are a good person, man, and it's amazing to see. All of the wonderful volunteers, obviously, thank you so much. It's just an amazing thing to basically help have all this together, and especially the Jackson's family. As I said at the very beginning, the entire family from my church that we're attending here, they came to learn, they came to support, and it's a wonderful thing to know that we're in a supportive church that even if they don't agree 100%, to me, it's a very incredible thing. And while, being geocentric, to me, I'm almost sometimes just as happy because I'll tell you, it's a huge paradigm shift, and that's fighting the whole mainstream narrative. So thank you so much, Jacksons. I really, really, really appreciate, how you've taken us in. We found a family, and we're encouraged to grow with you and your church. Let's go with the production crew. Thank you so much, Evolution Media, doing the amazing production. I know there were a lot of things coming. There were a lot of things coming to you, last minute, and you worked through it. And while there were certain hiccups here and there, overall, I really thank you for being diligent and trying your best to make it happen and make it the best that it can be, especially when we're making history in Canada. So thank you. I want to thank, thank you. I want to thank West Edmonton Mall. It's an amazing thing, and I think a lot of people that have never been to Edmonton or ever seen a mall this big, I think it was an eye-opening experience. And for me, people sometimes say, well, why'd you choose West Edmonton Mall? And there's many reasons, and I can go into them. But one of the big reasons was that this invited not people that maybe weren't on the same page, so that someone could attend the conference, but the others could go, like a family. It gave it the ability to actually do two things at once. And I've heard from many people that they were able to do that. Can I say something? Sure. Absolutely. But, last but not least, all of you. Absolutely. And I've said this to a few of you, but I'm saying this wouldn't happen without you. Absolutely. No, seriously. All of you make this happen. And again, it is so incredibly important you understand that. When you say, what am I doing? Just doing this, you're doing something. Because again, together when you start networking and you meet other people in your city and stuff, and you start talking and you start strategizing and just developing relationships and networking, honestly, it gets easier, I'm telling you. But when you just don't know anyone or you haven't even met someone in real life, there's so many people that are online right now, and they'll be saying all sorts of things about this conference, and that's fine. But you know what the sad reality is? They're not going to be able to experience something like this. And I say to the people that are all the skeptics, come out and see what it would be like, because I know that there's a lot of criticism sometimes, and I'm saying it's important. And community is incredibly important, and what you're doing, you're contributing, and you're making it happen just like all of us. It basically wouldn't happen if all these components weren't in place. We wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be making history, and we are. So thank you so much for making history in Canada with FE 2018. Canada, it was an incredible time, and, wait a minute, wait. Wait a minute, I think I had, well, that's right. I had something else. That's right. How could I forget it, right? I always end my conferences with a bit of a surprise that very few people even know what's going on. I mean, when I was in Raleigh, when I ended it, I already had the tickets up for the next conference that was going to happen in Denver, and people were already excited. So what could I have today? Let's just roll. Let's roll the video. That's right, the largest cruise ship in the world. The first flat Earth cruise. Because, hey, if there's anything we know, water's flat. And we're going to have a great time sailing on a 7-day cruise, leaving Florida, going to St. Thomas, St. Kitts, into the Bahamas, September 2019. A lot of time. And I don't know if many people have cruised, but I'll tell you, when I did my destination wedding with my wife, as I started talking to people and we started inviting people to it, when they realized actually how cheap it was, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll come. And we thought we'd be a few people, and our wedding party, I think, was about 12 at the end of it, and they were just random people, and they're like, yeah. The cruise itself is all-inclusive, and I'm sure you've heard stories, but it is absolutely an incredible experience. It's all-inclusive, all of your meals, your rooms, all your entertainment, is all included, and I think it works out to about $120 a night. So if you actually work it out, a cruise will probably work out to being cheaper than traveling to a conference. Now, just because the cruise is going on, this is not just an event. This is going to be also a vacation. So if you're ever planning a vacation, you get 2 in 1 with this one, big time. Because the conference will be the first 2 days when we're on sea, but then we'll be in destinations as we continue on the journey. It's going to be an incredible time, the first flat Earth cruise on the largest cruise ship in the world. And I'll tell you, flat Earth is going to take it by storm. Because I always say, it's like, what can we do when we know that the Earth is flat, but when we know water always finds its level, and we're going to go to the next level on the cruise ship next year. Thank you.
All right. We have to kind of get out of everybody's way. We're going to move over to the other room. But before you go, you got one last chance to there's some items left in there. Some of it's already sold out, but there's still some stuff there. T-shirts, the coins, the artwork. It's all there. But if you're part of the VIP dinner, it starts at 6 o'clock, and it's in conference room number 5. Conference room number 5 is where we'll be eating. So get up, stretch your legs. Just so you know, I don't know if they announced this earlier, the big alarm that was going off, the bells going off, it was from the fires. It was from the fires, and it was people left their windows open in their hotel rooms. So every time they got one fire alarm shut off, another one was going off, and another one was going off. So I felt bad. The fire department, I think they lost a lot of weight, and they didn't even fight a fire tonight. So they were running everywhere looking for this. Where's the alarm? So anyway, thank the staff, because they were busting their butts. I saw it myself. So thank you. We'll see you at dinner. And again, thanks to the production crew. You guys are awesome. But we need to work on that name. We're going to put an R in front of there.